Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, dissidents, one and all. A pleasant good evening to you all on this Wednesday night. This is the DueDissidence podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello out there in TV land.
Hello. 311 strong here in the YouTube chat. That's what we like to see. We got the crowd filing in over on Rumble. Thank you all for being here. We have Jake, our volunteer producer, in the house. Give a round of applause to Jake as we start the evening out. It is hump day. Happy hump day, everybody. Please hit that like button. And please, folks, hit that subscribe button as well. We are here, as always, at our semi-new midweek time slot. We do want to start by wishing a very heartfelt farewell to Sinead O'Connor, who passed away today, a true dissident. Gave up a lot by doing a very simple and very justifiable thing that caused a lot of controversy at the time. We're talking, of course, about ripping up that picture of Pope John Paul II. But that was a truly dissident act, and she lived a truly dissident life. And unfortunately, it was far too short. And so we got to start out on that somber note this evening, do we not?
I still remember, I think it was Joe Pesci who went on SNL not long after that, doing a whole bit. When I saw her do that, I wanted to give her such a slap. And everybody's laughing. Oh! So now you look back on it, I can't imagine there'd be that kind of controversy around that gesture today. But it was, it's not the 50s, it's the 90s, but it was this huge deal. I remember when she got booed off stage at the Dylan tribute, where Chris Christopherson, of all people, actually was coming out and kind of comforting her. She didn't do the song she was supposed to do. She wound up singing War, which was the same song she had sung on SNL. Proceeding tearing up that picture. There was a lot of hate coming her way. It's also interesting to speculate today with social media how much support she might have gotten that wasn't there for her then. Because the only media was the media, right? And they framed all the conversation around it, really making her this crazy, dangerous cuckoo bird. But if you made a gesture like that today, and the gesture was about the child sex abuse scandals that were being covered up. If you made that gesture today and the media tried to come after you, there'd be a lot of people on social media to have your back. It would probably make you more popular in the end.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Back then you couldn't really get that sort of organic response from the masses because the masses really had no outlet for it. Right. Because
I never met anyone who thought she was in the wrong. But if you looked at the media, you would have thought people were just horrified by what she did. The people who go to the media were horrified.
That's true. That is true. Folks, we have a big show for you guys tonight. Lots to cover. We're going to start out, as is a sort of new tradition here, with Russell Dobular's new and improved bookshelf, making his book recommendation for the evening. Russell, what do you got today?
All right. So because we're going to cover Mr. McCarthy's perhaps threat, perhaps he'll follow through with it. Okay, so most people think of All the President's Men when they think of the Nixon reporting. But actually, this is a case where I feel the sequel is better than the original. So Woodward and Bernstein did a follow-up, The Final Days, that is just this incredible dissection of what was going on with crazy Dick Nixon and Henry Kissinger in this White House as the walls are legitimately closing in on them. The scene in this book that is probably best remembered is Nixon making Kissinger get on his knees in a drunken hysteria to pray to the portrait of Abraham Lincoln above the fireplace. That alone is worth the purchase price of the book. So I would highly recommend The Final Days, the sequel to All the President's Men.
All right, very well. Well, in that case, why don't we go slightly out of order here and start out with a little bit of impeachment news. Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy was on the Sean Hannity program last night, where he dropped his most explicit hint yet that the House may be opening up an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. Let's take a look at the video.
Biden was running for office, he told the American public that he's never talked. When President Biden was running for office, he told the American public that he's never talked about business. He said his family has never received $1 from China, which we now proved is not true. We now have some of the most credible whistleblowers. These 10-year IRS agents who have come forward said that the Biden family has been treated differently, that what Weiss has told us is different than what Garland and Weiss has told the public. And you're sitting here today where now you have found millions of foreign money, just what the 1023 alleges they did to Biden's family. Now we found that it has funneled through shell companies. If you're sitting in our position today, we would know none of this if Republicans had not taken the majority. We've only followed where the information has taken us. But Hannity, this is rising to the level of impeachment inquiry, which provides Congress the strongest power to get the rest of the knowledge and information needed.
Okay, so you hear even McCarthy hedging today in a press conference. Impeachment inquiry doesn't necessarily mean an impeachment follows. Yeah, right. It's looking like they're getting ready to impeach him right around the time in the election cycle when the Democrats impeached Donald Trump. They impeached him, December, January into February of 2020. By the time this actually happens, it'll probably be early to mid-fall. So right around that same time heading into an election season. They certainly have a lot to run with this time. Last time the impeachment that the Democrats attempted on Trump obviously failed, as everybody knew it would. But, all of those narratives went out the window once the pandemic hit. So we really never got a sense of just how damaging that was going to be to Donald Trump's re-election campaign. It's very unclear, I think, how this will impact the campaign, whether this will hurt Biden or not. But what I could just say, beyond the horse race stuff, which is the least interesting part of the story to me, this just shows part of the destructiveness of the Trump era. And I don't just mean Donald Trump. I mean the Democratic response to Donald Trump. We are now in the phase of this country where we just normalize going nuclear on the other side, right? Where anytime the out party senses foul play, which is going to be every time because presidents don't get to be president by being nice, right? By coloring inside the lines.
What about Truman?
Right, exactly.
He was a haberdasher.
It's a haberdasher. That's right.
It's
They don't make them like that anymore.
with a fondness for nuking Asian people.
Exactly. They don't make them like that anymore. So, look, this is the new normal. This is the unraveling of a democratic system, and we're there. We're now in it. We are now in it, and that's kind of what I have to say about this. It looks like they are going to pull the trigger on impeachment. The Republican majority, I don't think really wants to do this or feels it necessary to do this. I think that, this is what happens when a small minority leverages their power and bends leadership to their will. You got the sense early on that this was something that the Freedom Caucus really wanted, and looks like they're going to get it. And we'll see what happens. Like, I don't know what the effect of this will be, but I don't think you come on TV and fire a shot across the bow like that unless you plan to follow through.
You're probably right. And as cooler-headed observers pointed out when they kept prosecuting Trump, the Republicans are almost certainly going to prosecute you when they have the power to do so. Now you have established a precedent. Now, it's interesting with the Democrats, they are willing to defy convention as long as it's of no meaningful political consequence, particularly to their donors, because they are absolutely refusing to repeal the filibuster, right? That would be another nuclear option, similar to not just once, but repeatedly impeaching a president. Previously, they didn't do that because it was understood what it would lead to. That if you keep doing these kinds of political prosecutions, even if there's some merit, there's merit with all of them. You could find a basis to impeach all of them. So once they open that door with the pretense that Donald Trump was somehow qualitatively different from his predecessors, and if anything, the fact that they never did this to Bush puts the lie to that, because Donald Trump was far better than George Bush, who's finger painting as we speak. They're doing portraits of his victims, as I like to think of them. So you want to break these conventions? You want to break these gentlemen's agreements, these old collegiate Senate conventions? Why don't you get rid of the filibuster? You wouldn't even overrule a fucking Senate parliamentarian to get a $15 minimum wage, but you decided to break this convention because you didn't see a downside. Well, the downside is this. Now they're going to impeach your president. And you know what? It's not baseless. It's not groundless.
No, of course
you
not.
could argue they have better evidence and better grounds to impeach Biden than they had to impeach Trump. So now what are you going to do? How are you going to talk your way out of this? How are you going to say, "Oh my God, they're completely breaking the norms and guardrails"? You broke them first. You broke them first. Now you normalized this.
Of course. And, these Biden financial ties are to countries that come up a lot now in terms of global affairs, right? China, Ukraine, right? I mean, come on. We're talking about World Wars III and IV and potential conflicts of interest on both sides of those, in each separate case. So, of course, there's a base for it. Paul Chu says, I feel like you're downplaying Biden's actual corruption. No, not at all. All we're saying is that there's a history of people in power sort of looking the other way on most of this stuff, and now that has been broken.
Under the premise of very much like the premise that they ostensibly used to not repeal the filibuster. Well, if we get rid of the filibuster, then they're going to be able to use those tactics against us. It was always the same logic for why you don't frivolously impeach a president. They decided to throw all that out the window with Donald Trump. I think they got drunk on their own Russiagate MSNBC propaganda. And, they just didn't really think through the consequences. I think they got caught up in their own breathless walls are closing in 24-hour-a-day cable news cycle bullshit, even though it was quite obvious if you had thought about it for 5 seconds. Well, as soon as the Republicans have Congress, they're going to impeach your president.
Absolutely. No question about it. We'll move on to our second headline of the night, which also has to do with some Biden family intrigue here. This was a development that just broke today. We were not planning on doing this story as of this morning, obviously, but judge delays Hunter Biden plea deal. So the president's son had an agreement with prosecutors to plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges and avoid prosecution on a gun charge. The judge overseeing the case demanded more information from both sides. So there were some outlets who prematurely reported this morning that Hunter was going to have to change his plea from guilty to not guilty. Now, the significance of that, if it does come to that, is that when you plead not guilty and it actually goes to trial, the evidence becomes public evidence. So at that point, we all get to look under the hood at exactly what each legal team is looking at. Whereas when there is a plea that is accepted, a lot of that is kept under wraps. But we, of course, don't know if it's going to come to that former option quite yet here. The federal judge overseeing the case, Mary Ellen Noreika, deferred her decision on approving the deal between Mr. Biden and federal prosecutors on Wednesday afternoon. The latest twist in a politically charged case that seemed to have been sewed up just hours earlier. The hearing appeared to be going smoothly before Judge Noreika questioned whether the agreement meant that Mr. Biden would be immune from prosecution for other possible crimes, including violations related to representing foreign governments in perpetuity. A lot of those crimes might have to do with what's going to come out in the impeachment inquiry as well. So there's a little bit of overlap here, obviously. When a top prosecutor in the case said it would not, Chris Clark, Mr. Biden's lead lawyer, initially hesitated and then said the government's position would make the agreement null and void. Now, the White House and their press team are trying to emphasize here that this judge was appointed by Donald Trump. The judge was confirmed by both Delaware senators at the time. And this judge, Mary Ellen Noreika, did rule on a Biden case before. She actually dismissed the defamation case of the laptop owner who sued Hunter for defamation. So there is evidence to suggest that the judge, while yes, a Trump-appointed judge, is not in the tank for the GOP. She actually ruled in the Biden's favor on a previous case. But this is a potentially interesting development because if they can't come to a plea agreement and it goes to trial, then all the evidence becomes public. For that reason, I suspect they will strike some kind of a deal. That's why this is just a delay, but a definite snag in Hunter Biden's plans there for sure.
It is interesting that the prosecutors are refusing to give up the right to prosecute him in the future. I have no way of knowing this. I would suspect some of the press around this, around the perception that Hunter's getting a sweetheart deal, in addition to the IRS whistleblowers, I think is probably making them decide to take a hard line. Yeah. I see China Shill says, I see your bias, Keaton. Is that because the prosecutor's name is Weiss? The prosecutor's name is David Weiss. Is that what you're getting at there? Yeah, we will see. We will see what happens. But, obviously that's bad news for Joe and Hunter there. And to me, the interesting thing would be if this goes to trial, how does that timeline intersect with or perhaps run parallel to an impeachment timeline? I mean, you talk about an embattled White House. Can you imagine having the son and the father on trial at the same time? It could come to that. Who knows? If that doesn't tell you to put a fork in the country, we're done. I don't know what does. Yeah, no, look, there's a lot of very depressing news for the country this evening. I hate to tell you, folks. This is not a very pleasant itinerary as we look at the agenda here. Although the UPS and Teamsters deal is somewhat hopeful, which we will get to in due time. But let's take some super chats here. We have a few super chats that we have to get to. Ruthless Criticism. Thank you so much, Ruthless Criticism, for the $5. 2024 U.S. election will be Vivek Ramaswamy versus Gavin Newsom versus Cornel West. Calling it now for future proof. All right, well, that is a bold pick right there, my friend. You can win a lot of money if you put a few bucks on that. Gavin and Cornel?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what he's thinking.
Yeah, I'm not buying it.
Not buying it, but an interesting bet because you get great odds on it.
I would say
it's the kind of thing where if it hits, that's like putting a few bucks
right,
on red.
that's
on
the
35 that's
trifecta
on the roulette. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
or whatever the number is.
I see how you're getting there, and I'm not going to say that absolutely couldn't happen, but that's why it would pay off 500 to 1 odds.
Exactly.
Like look at the odds on that. Predict It probably doesn't even have that because they don't really do trifectas. They'll do like this person, this person, this person. But you could get the effect of that by betting on each of them individually.
Individually, right, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, not Cornell, but you could with Vivek.
Oh, yeah, Vivek and Newsom. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Abiding 71, thank you for the 99 cents, my friend. We appreciate that very much. Paul Chu is a member. Thank you, Paul Chu. It says it's Thursday over there. All right, you're one of our viewers from across the pond. Beautiful. Well, thanks for staying up late with us tonight. Ruthless criticism. Again, I got money to spend and starting a new job soon. All right. Well, that's music to our ears. Love you all. Get ready to read more of what I have to say. Don't miss my previous one. Don't worry. We got them. They're all starred.
Thank you.
We will get to them, and thank you very much. And I see you gave us a real big one down there. So we're going to get to that in just a minute. But thank you very much. Gray Bright. No one does what you guys do. It's a mitzvah. Well, thank you. Wish I could give more, but Russell knows my story. It's JD. Oh, we remember JD. JD is one of the OG dissident supporters from way back in the audio podcast days, which we may be making a return to those days soon.
The Daywalker returns.
Exactly. So we might be heading back to the old audio days sooner than later. You know what I mean?
Exactly. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. We will get to that.
We'll get to that. They're fucking around with us a little bit over here.
They're on our ass over here a little bit.
They're on our ass. They're breaking our fucking balls here on YouTube a little bit. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it when we get some more people in here. We need a big audience for that. Political theater, says Courtney, they don't have the votes. Well, they certainly don't have the votes to convict. So all these impeachment inquiries and impeachment processes are theater in that sense. The question is, do they have to do it? Do they have to do it? Like the exhaustion that I think the country is going through when it comes to all of this is really a factor. I really think that's a factor. I think that showed itself in the midterms a bit, where you really saw an electorate that was just kind of voting based on the issues in front of them that felt tangible, right? Like all this stuff, I feel like the average person sees it and tunes out now. That's just the way I read it. So I don't know if the Republicans feel like they have to do this. Again, I don't think the Republican majority really wants to do this. I think they're doing this to placate the base because they feel they have to, because the base made themselves known and felt in a way that the Democratic base never really does. It was the centrist Democrats who, when they went to impeach Trump, some people said that they were doing it in response to the squad, right? Because AOC, forced Nancy Pelosi's hand. That was the narrative. But when you saw the grandstanding by the Hakeem Jeffries types and all the centrist Democrats, it didn't feel that way to me. It felt to me like they were pretty much all in on it. We'll see how it works out. That's all I have to say. But I don't think it's politically necessary. I think Biden is weak enough where they're probably better off politically not doing it. That's what I would say. And that's the way I thought about the Democrats. Yeah, I didn't think it would politically pay off to impeach Trump when the Democrats went after Trump. I still think, look, of course, there's justification for it. Like Russell said earlier, there's justification to impeach all these guys, right? You don't get that job by playing nice, right? But I don't know if it's worth it. My sense, look, my read on these elections, that 2022 midterm signaled to me that the normies own that space, and the normies do not love this stuff, right? This is stuff that the political junkies and the fervent diehards in each base like. It's stuff that the normies see, and they wash their hands of it, And not to say it'll hurt them, but I don't think it'll help them very much.
I honestly believe that the narrative that you would build if you decided to prosecute Biden would be easier to follow. And as a result, it would be a lot more damning. A lot of the stuff around him is a lot more obvious. Oh, we're going to hold up that loan until you fire the supposedly corrupt prosecutor who's investigating the company that gave my son what the mob would call a no-show job. And we just happen to be stuffing as much money as we can print into the pockets of Ukraine now.
Well,
like that's a lot more than whatever the fuck they were trying to do with Trump.
Well, yeah, but you said it right there. Does the Republican top brass have it in them to paint that picture that implicates Ukraine, right? Do they want to? Do they really want to go there, right? Because, you know, like we said, most Republicans support that funding, right? So do they want to cross that line? Open question, I believe.
Hang on. I know you don't want to do this, but we have to give a little birthday shout out to Jimmy Dore, whose birthday. Oh wait, it's both of their birthdays.
Is it Jimmy Dore's birthday? I didn't know that.
It is Jimmy Dore's birthday. Happy birthday, Jimmy. I think we're about
happy
the same
birthday.
age.
Happy birthday, Mick Jagger.
And happy birthday to Mick, who's still out there doing it, man. Still making it happen.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Happy birthday to both of them.
Happy birthday to two true rock stars, right?
Yeah.
Ruthless Criticism. There's that big donation. Let's get a singing bowl out for Ruthless Criticism. Thank you for the $50, my friend. That's very generous. This is fascism. Fascism is ultimately a result of failure of unified ruling class, lower bourgeoisie fighting upper, petty bourgeois ascendant in response to failure. Don't trivialize it, idealize it. Class analysis is key. Well, thank you for that comment. Russell, do you have a response to that for $50?
That's a lot of syllables and words and
smart
concepts. That's well, no, I think this is, you're quoting Jason Aldean, right?
Yeah, right. Try that in a small town. That was the next line. I guess you would run out of characters.
That was the record company wouldn't let him put that verse in.
Wouldn't let. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so lower bourgeoisie fighting up in response to failure. Don't trivialize it. I mean, you know, it sounds to me like you're making an accelerationist argument. Yeah, I kind of see it that way. Like, this is the fall. This is the collapse. This is why I have often argued and sometimes been misinterpreted as being supportive of right-wing efforts, because I've said this. Those guys are much more advanced in their preparations intellectually and ideologically for a post-collapse takeover than the left is. If you look at their intellectual articles, their books, their treatises, their leaders, they're already thinking this way. Like what you're saying here, they're there. Yep, this is how it ends. This is how democracies collapse, and we're going to rush into the void. The only people, broadly speaking, on the left who have that kind of a perspective are the communists. Nobody else is really thinking that way.
We were up at 670. Now we're down to 663. We hit it right back. Beautiful. Made it. 666 in the chat here, folks. Please hit that like button and please hit that subscribe button. Very, very important. We thank you all very much for being here. We have a lot to get to tonight, and we will get to some more super chats in just a few moments. But we do want to go across the pond, way across the pond, to Israel. We want to cover this development here over in Israel. We want to highlight this here. This was earlier in the week. Defying unrest, Israel adopts law weakening Supreme Court. So this is an article from Monday. There has been a development since, which we will get to. On a day of turbulence in the streets and in the halls of power alike, Israeli lawmakers on Monday enacted a major change in law to weaken the judiciary, capping a months-long campaign by the right-wing governing coalition that is pitting Israelis against one another with rare ferocity. Throngs of protesters outside the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, and opposition lawmakers inside shouted that the change was a grievous blow to the rule of law, to the rights of citizens, and to democracy itself. Coalition members countered that it was the judiciary that posed the threat to democracy and said that they plan to take further steps to curb it. The right over the law, which has prompted the most widespread demonstrations in the country's history, reflects a deeper split between those who want a more explicitly Jewish and religious Israel and those who want to preserve a more secular, pluralist society. So we cut from there to today, where now we have Israel's High Court. Israel's High Court says it will review Netanyahu's judicial overhaul. This just broke this morning. The justices will hear petitions in September against a new law that curbs their own authority, which Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has pushed ahead despite Israel's political turmoil. The Supreme Court may now, in essence, decide its own fate and choose between accepting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's move to reduce its power or reasserting its dominance by striking down the law. The decision to take up the case beginning in September sets up a potential clash between the government and the highest court of the land. If the court rejects the law, Mr. Netanyahu and his right-wing coalition might refuse to abide by the ruling, forcing senior civil servants and lower courts to decide which branch of government to obey. If it allows it to stand, the decision may be seen by hardliners as a green light for the government to do as it wishes. So the Supreme Court can now overrule laws that the government makes based on a standard of reasonableness, which, of course, Netanyahu wants to do away with, not surprisingly. So, you have the same kind of basic constitutional question there that we have here, except there is no constitution there that they have to abide by. That's what makes this very, very complicated. But obviously we have a separation of powers here, and there is a debate over how democratic a society really is, given that there is a judicial branch, which is specifically designed here in this country to sort of provide an anti-democratic counterweight to the democratic process of representative democracy, i.e. to prevent what we call here a tyranny of the majority. And obviously Netanyahu's government wants no such restraints. And so it's an interesting question there. But given how much Israel has been in the news lately here in terms of our primary politics world with RFK, I thought that was an interesting story worth mentioning.
I gotta say, digging into this, I've read books on Israel, but it must have not focused on this, how the government is structured. I gotta say, it's a little meshuggah. It's a little a little fucked up. Okay, so you have a single chamber of parliament with no Senate. Or House of Lords or whatever. You don't have anything like that. And then you don't have a constitution, but you have basic laws, which sound like, I don't know, suggestions, or it almost sounds like you have the amendments to the Constitution without the Constitution itself, these basic laws. And in the basic laws, the Supreme Court is given this power to overrule the government based on reasonableness, but they're not wrong that that's a completely arbitrary standard.
Of course.
Reasonable. Of course, that's completely arbitrary. So maybe you guys should draft a fucking constitution or something that it's based on. And look, I say all this fully recognizing that our system is not working out so great. But it worked for a while. A fairly long time before it imploded in on itself. I would say no matter what system you have, it's only as good as the people living in it. And as the people begin to fall into decadence, so too does the system. But just that whole structure, it's kind of amazing that it held together. I mean, I think it seems to me it probably held together on, a sense of Jewish national identity above all else.
Well, that's why Netanyahu, I mean, not entirely why, but that's one of the reasons why he's been such a nationalist fighter, his whole life, going back decades, right? Because that was what gave that state a sort of cohesion that sort of prevented these questions from really bubbling up and boiling over, because there wasn't all that much conflict to speak of until now. And actually, I'm surprised there is now. I think that's why they're saying that these are the biggest protests that we've seen in the country's history. Obviously, the country is less than a century old, but it's still quite a significant thing. I mean, you saw Israeli protesters getting hosed down, sprayed off of walls and things like that. I mean, it's a pretty turbulent scene there, which you wouldn't know, watching, mainstream media here.
Yeah, just looking at all that, I was surprised because, of course, you see the headline and you expect what the Knesset did to be completely unreasonable. And I suppose within that context it is, but the context is crazy, right? That you have a court that can just overrule even government minister appointments because you don't have a Senate. So it falls to the court to do that. But the court does not really have any check on its power in terms of a guiding document. So it's
Right.
it's a very strange thing, because you can't say that this act by the Knesset is not addressing a real problem. Like, you can't say that that's not anti-democratic. And as you point out, you could say that about ours, but it's guided by a document that was democratically created. Now, of course,
and there is a check on the judicial branch within our system, right?
And
each
there
branch
is
does have some oversight power over the other.
Right. And yes, it can be overruled. You can create amendments.
You can impeach judges. Right.
Right. There are ways to handle it. But the idea that you just have this judiciary that can just say, yeah, no, that's a really bad cabinet appointment. That's unreasonable. Like, that's all I have to say. It's not reasonable. That's true. But of course, this is not what it's about. It's about the fact that you have this far right nationalist government that doesn't want to check on its power. So how does removing that one check on its power not make it, release the last check on its authoritarian impulses? So it's just there. That's just a no good solution situation, as is so often the case with that country, to use the term loosely.
Indeed. All right, we have one more piece of bad news here before we get to our main segments here, and this has to do with the weather. Folks, it's hot out there. It's hot out there, is it not? Am I wrong?
It's and of course, I have 2 days of tours from hell, like 8 hours and 12 hours in 94 degrees.
I used to do some of those, man. You got to drink a lot of water, because by halfway through, you really start to feel your throat going. When I would do those double tours in the middle of the summer, it is brutal. It is absolutely brutal.
I never do gigs that long. It's very rare. Okay, so starting with so the planet's on fire. That's the theme of this segment. Hang on, I'm having a little trouble here. All right. So Florida ocean temperatures surge to 100 degrees as mass coral bleaching event is found in some reefs. An urgent rescue operation is underway to save Florida coral species from extinction as a mass bleaching event and die-off from unprecedented water temperatures spreads across reefs in the Florida Keys. Multiple reefs around the Florida Keys are now completely bleached or dead in a grim escalation that took place in as little as 2 weeks. Experts now say they expect complete mortality of the bleached reefs in just a week, and worry reefs at greater depths could face the same fate if the unprecedented ocean warmth continues to escalate. Extreme heat and a lack of rain and wind pushed water temperatures around Florida to some of the highest levels ever observed anywhere. A buoy in the Florida Bay hit 101.1 degrees Fahrenheit at a depth of 5 feet Monday in an area where coral is scant. Many other stations in the area topped 96 degrees, including one that hit 99 degrees. So if you take a look at some of the water temperatures around Florida right now, got 99.3, 96.6, 101.1 in Manatee Bay. All right.
Goddamn Vladimir Putin blowing up that Nord Stream pipeline. That's who I blame for this.
Well, now the new, haven't you read it was the Ukrainians, but we didn't give them permission.
I don't believe
the Ukrainians did it. They did it behind our back.
I don't buy it.
I consider it's very ungrateful of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving to Europe.
We're trying to stay on the censor's good side. for the evening. So we're going to say for tonight that Vladimir Putin blew up the Nord Stream pipeline.
All right, just for tonight.
Just for tonight.
Just for tonight. It's like Queen for a day, only with blowing up.
Exactly. Pipelines. I think we should stick with that for the evening.
So going to Europe. So you're hearing mostly about Greece because of the evacuations. In fact, all right, you can see that video, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. Are they going to show that? All right, so this was a Greek firefighting plane that went down. So yeah, 2 died in that crash. So for us dumbass Americans, 44 Celsius is about 111 degrees. So that's the heat that they're getting in the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean is heating up about 20% faster than the planet as a whole. So that's why they're getting here faster. This is the future. Welcome to the future, folks. So more than 40 people have been killed in Europe as wildfires engulfed more swaths of land on Wednesday, destroying homes and livelihoods and threatening nature reserves. Thousands of firefighters worked to contain the blazes in parts of Greece and 8 other Mediterranean countries, and the entire island of Rhodes was put into a state of emergency for 6 months. High temperatures and winds have created a perfect storm to allow the fires to spread in Portugal, Turkey, Italy, France, Croatia, and Spain. A blaze in Rhodes prompted the biggest evacuation in Greek history, with more than 20,000 people forced to flee homes and hotels over the weekend, while around 2,500 people have already been evacuated from Corfu, which has been enduring dozens of blazes. At least 7 people have been killed in Italy as it battled both extreme heat and violent storms. In the north, Milan residents reported torrential rain and hail, with a 16-year-old girl killed after a tree fell on her tent. Meanwhile, in the south, the heat wave reached 47.6 Celsius. Any of our European friends want to help us ignorant Americans in the chat with what that temperature is? Because I looked up 44. I don't know what 47.6 is. With 3 people found dead in Sicily. In Greece, authorities have evacuated more than 20. Okay, so we got into that. Nearly 100 firefighters have worked to contain a wildfire close to Nice Airport in France, while 300 firefighters battled fires near the city of Arles. Local media reported that winds were so strong in Croatia that firefighting aircraft could not take off, while wildfires have been reported in the south of the country. Fires in Spain continue to pose a problem following 2 weeks of extreme heat, with a blaze in Gran Canaria reaching just meters from an air traffic antenna and prompting the evacuation of hundreds. Wind has also caused issues in Portugal as firefighters tackle a large blaze near the tourist hotspot of Cascais. Meanwhile, in North Africa, at least 34 people have been killed in Algeria, with fires burning in a total of 15 provinces and 1,500 evacuated. And the fires are spreading into neighboring Tunisia. So we have a graphic of all the areas that are on fire and endangered right now. So basically, that's the entire Mediterranean region you can see, and the south of France. Climate change is here. It's not at a future point, and it seems like every summer is just worse and worse. As most of you know, I'm going to Italy and Greece in September, and I've been joking but not joking. I'm seeing the world while it's there to be seen, and this is a very good example of what I'm talking about. Because are you going to be able to go visit these places in September in 10 years? Is it going to be safe? Are you going to
be able to go visit this September? Are you going to be able to go?
I'm hoping things die down by then, but you got a point. It's coming up soon now.
No, I mean, look, in New York City, we had the incidents of, orange, smoke sort of
Right.
descending upon
Right.
Manhattan Island and the surrounding boroughs. We
With
had that here.
that's so, and that is so foreign to New Yorkers. When I smelled that, I thought it was the pretzel vendors.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding. Like, I couldn't imagine that wildfire smoke was in New York like that.
No, we had it up here. I mean, we're closer to Canada than you are down there. I'm about, what am I, about 120, 130 miles north of the city up here. And we had multiple days. We just had air quality alerts last week. Like, I feel like a good 6 or 7 out of the last 30 days it's been unsafe
I
to be
didn't take
outside
out my
because of the
bike last
particulate
week.
matter. Yeah, because that shit is no joke. I mean, that shit gets into your lungs. When it's small enough, it can get into your bloodstream and cause all kinds of things. So, yeah, no, it's a very, very bad news. But yeah, I mean, you're just seeing a brutal summer all across the board. Wildfires up in Canada, floods down in my hometown. I mean, we have entire roads just carved out of the mountainside because of just historic flooding. They had 10 inches of rain in one day. Which is, what you would expect for an entire summer during a particularly rainy summer. And so, yeah, just absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Just a real unraveling.
I mean, I didn't even know they could have storms like that in the north of Italy, like what they're describing with the hail. Like this is okay for the geeks. This is like the beginning of the 1980 Flash Gordon movie where Ming just decides to hit all the buttons to destroy the earth. You start getting these storms and wildfires. I mean, that's what it's like. It's every season seems to bring these new risks and horrors and unprecedented events, and particularly the summers are just brutal. It's literally the world is on fire. It's really frightening. Yeah, you just wonder what. If we're here now, really, what's it going to be in 10 years?
Right. No, indeed.
And
they're
talking
she's going to Morocco in September. Been reading about the fires there.
All right. So we're going to be right. We're going to be right across the Mediterranean from each other.
That's right.
No, and they're talking a lot about Greece because 1 out of 5 jobs in Greece is tourism. So really, certain like roads is a lot of parts of it are destroyed now. In roads, you have these poor people, their whole lives are gone now. Even people whose hotel is still intact, who wants to come to an apocalyptic wasteland for their vacation.
Right. No, indeed. It's terrible situation. But we thought we should definitely cover that before we get into our main segments of the evening. Folks, we have a couple of program notes that we want to run by you here before we get into our main segments. Number 1, Russell will not be here on Friday morning. He had a work commitment scheduled way back before we added the Friday show. So I will be hosting that along with friend of the show and subject of our upcoming dissident documentary film, Jose Vega, will be here with me on Friday morning at 9 a.m. So we are very much looking forward to talking with Jose. And so that'll be quite a lot of fun. And we also do want to, of course, plug our Patreon community here. You can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence to help support this show. And one of the perks is you get your name up in lights here on the screen. You also get call-in access to these regularly scheduled live streams, as well as access to 2 monthly or 2 patron and paid Substack subscriber exclusive live streams per month. Our next one will be on July 31st. That is this Monday evening at 8 p.m. Last day of the month. We will send July off in style with a Patreon exclusive stream. Those take place on Rumble as private unlisted links. And so if you join, you get access to those shows. And we want to make especially known the importance of signing up at Patreon tonight. For those who are on Twitter, you know this. We want to thank, first of all, very much our friend Kit over at Hardlands Media for helping us craft that tweet and send it out to YouTube. YouTube did offer their first sort of disciplinary action to this channel yesterday when they took down Russell's shit post about Joe Biden and Indiana Jones, citing a violation of their harassment and cyberbullying policy. The only person who could have been the victim of such a thing conceivably in that video is the president of the United States. So I guess making fun of the president is a violation of a harassment policy, which we think is absurd.
You can't even say Phoebe Waller-Bridge because I went out of my way to say she wasn't to blame.
Yeah, no, it would have been Biden himself. But apparently they struck that down for a community guidelines violation. And we're here tonight. So we obviously did not get a strike, but we did get a warning, which means the next violation will result in a strike where we will go dark for a week here on YouTube. We appealed that decision, and then that appeal was rejected 15 minutes after we appealed it, which means I don't think anybody watched it once we appealed it, because the video itself is 10 minutes long. So how could they have watched it?
Right.
So Kit sort of, gave me a good idea of what next steps to take. So thank you very much, Kit, for your help with that. And thank you to everybody who retweeted at Team YouTube and things like that. They said they were taking a quote unquote closer look. We will see what happens with that. But in any event, folks, we say it a lot and we mean it. The way to censor-proof this operation and the way to ensure that this show can continue despite whatever actions the big tech overlords may take against us is to go to patreon.com and become a patron member. Patreon or Substack, they get you perks. You can sign up at different tiers at the Patreon site. You get access to 2 bonus streams per month. We think the perks are quite worth it. Just those bonus shows alone, I think, are a lot of fun. I think those shows are better than these shows, honestly. I mean, I feel that way. I don't know if the audience does. Well, obviously I'm not in a spot to sort of judge the work. That's for you guys to judge. But I know as a performer, right? Russell and I are both from the theater. We're both, from the acting world. The key to putting on a good show, whether you're singing a song or talking politics or acting in a play, is you have to be in the moment. You have to have everything available to you. And speaking on a platform like this, it's impossible to be truly in the moment because there's always a separate processor sort of running in the back of your mind. What can I say? What can't I say? Right? Yeah. So it's really impossible to focus entirely on what's in front of you and what's going on, because you always have that wheel in the back of your mind spinning. Okay, should you go with that? Should you not go with that? Is that joke too much? Is it not too much? Right? It's hard. Whereas when we were on Rumble doing the private shows, when we had our 3-hour stream with Craig Pasta Jardula over there on Rumble, that part of your brain turns off, and all that bandwidth you put into the actual show. And so I love those patron shows. We think they're worth it. A lot of you guys, God bless you. You hit us up with these super chats a lot per show. If you're the kind of person who hits us up 3 or 4 times per show with a super chat, all you got to do is hit us up 2 or 3 times with a super chat and put that other super chat money into the Patreon pool. It really helps a fantastic amount. It is super important because, as Michael Brooks said when he was in the game, God rest his soul, he said, we may consider ourselves independent media people, but we're really just Uber drivers. We are guest working on a big tech platform that cares nothing about us whatsoever, and they can have our way with us with no consequence to them. And so the way you insulate yourself from that is you build a patron community. We have between Patreon and Substack, we have about 225 people signed up. What it would take, just being realistic with you guys, this is no pressure. What it would take realistically to make this operation completely censor-proof to the point where we know we're going to be here no matter what, it would take 1,000 of you guys. Now, we're not giving you an ultimatum. We're not saying we quit if we don't get 1,000. We're just, right, exactly. We'll be here as long as we can be here. But no bullshit. That's what it would take to the point where we could truly call ourselves independent in the sense that we are no longer dependent upon the mercy of big tech to run the show. And so if you can go over there,
and then we call up YouTube, we say
shine box.
Right. Then you're in a position where if the worst happens, you're up and running anyway. We could do live streams on any platform that'll have live streams, any chat that'll have us. So we keep everybody here. We're all friends. We all know each other. We all talk to each other. But that's really what it takes to really foolproof this operation. And so if you super chat us quite a bit, you don't have to take any extra money out of your pocket. Just take a few bucks that you would put in the super chats, go to Patreon, go to Substack, and sign up. It really, really helps us a great deal. It's really a very, very important thing.
That's it. I mean, we really have to hold back a lot on this platform. And my fear, as I've mentioned on the post-duopoly show and on here, is that as this election heats up, and provided that Cornel West decides that he can take that heat and his family can take that heat, because these people are going to come at him very, very hard. But assuming he stays in, they're going to put a lot of pressure on these platforms to deplatform Cornell-friendly kind of channels, left of center channels, just generally politically dissident channels could wind up just all getting demonetized. I could definitely see that happening, because if you look at YouTube as a whole, people in this space, we're in a little ecosystem, right? But come on, man. You look at the people who are doing film criticism, who are doing unboxing videos, who are doing, I listened to Great Gig in the Sky for the first time, watch my reaction. Those people get fucking millions of views on those things.
Yep.
These channels are small potatoes for them. And if it becomes too much of a headache, it would not at all be surprising for them just to decide it's more trouble than it's worth to have us. So yes, please subscribe on Patreon. As Keaton says, if you give us all these super chats, just take one of those super chats and become a member. It's cheap. It's cheap. Come on, we give you a lot of entertainment for your entertainment dollar. Also, I've never been able to do it on here. My knowledge of Polish jokes is encyclopedic.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
the more we're over there, the more I can mess with the Poles.
Exactly. Well, look, I mean, there's just like we said, it's just very, very important to censor proof the operation to make sure that we can keep going. No matter what happens.
$2 cover charge only, folks.
Yeah, exactly. And you get 2 bonus shows per month. So why not? We may even add more if we get more Patreon members signed up. We have talked about doing Rumble exclusive streams and things like that. So that's always something that we have to keep in mind. We're at 3 shows a week right now. If we add a 4th show a week, it will be a Rumble exclusive stream per week.
Right.
And then look, this is nothing that we didn't see coming a mile away. We've talked about this much in the past, and we tend to have a good sense of where these trends are headed. And so that's why it's very important. If you can go help us out over there, it really does. How much does Patreon take? Less than this platform. Way less. I don't know what the exact number is, but it seems like with the payouts, it's just a processing fee, and then I think less than 10%. So that's certainly less than here. And look, it's a shame. I mean, we love YouTube. We love it here. We don't dislike this platform at all. This platform introduced us to all of you guys, and so we love being here, and we intend to stay here as long as they'll have us. But we can't control what happens. Right. When the Ukraine war started, they said, hey, we're demonetizing any channel that takes the wrong side of this war. They just said that arbitrarily. Right. A few weeks later, Jackson Hinkle's channel demonetized. Right? Not a defense of Hinkle necessarily, but I think that was wrong, the way that happened to him, right? In a very arbitrary fashion. Same thing could happen here, right? Google may think, hey, you know what? Maybe for the sake of our ESG score, we should demonetize any anti-establishment political channels, or maybe just demonetize political content entirely. How do we know that won't happen?
Exactly.
How do we know that won't happen?
Exactly. And what was most disturbing to me about this strike is we're pretty careful. Yes, we're dissident, so the content's going to be dissident. There's only so careful we could be unless we want to go to unboxing videos. But there were things I was very careful not to get into in that video. And given the subjects of that video, you can imagine what I could have gotten into. And I said after I did it, I want to do a follow-up video dealing more with that subject, and we'll do it on Rumble. Because I know you can't talk about certain things on here, which I feel contributes to the kinds of conspiracy theories around the subject that video was addressing. The fact that we got a warning off of that, it's scary because it's like, well, okay, unless you just pull it back to the point that you are only doing this very milquetoast show, you just never know. You just never know.
Never know. Of course you never know.
We don't even know what in particular in that video.
No, they don't tell you what. And there are specific carve-outs for scripted, satirical, or comedic content, which that was. I mean, the thumbnail was a cartoon of Biden as Indiana Jones. I mean, it was a tongue-in-cheek presentation, obviously. And there are specific exceptions to the guidelines for that. So we thought, all right, well, that's why we figured it's a mistake. Let's try and get it seen. But then 15 minutes later, they send you an email. We looked over it. No, you didn't. Right. No, you didn't. The video's 10 minutes long. I sent you the appeal 15 minutes ago. You didn't look over shit, right? So that's why we're trying to get that rectified now. And thank you to Team YouTube for saying you'd look into it more. We were waiting on a final call on that. But the bottom line is, folks, it's very, very disheartening. It's very, very discouraging to build and build and build something knowing that it could just be taken away arbitrarily and for no reason with no notice and no recourse.
All the time.
Happens to people all the time. I'm an Uber driver. I know that. I experienced that as an Uber driver. They once deactivated my account because my selfie recognition photo didn't match my profile because I had too much facial hair at the time when I happened to take the selfie recognition. They told me I was deactivated. There was nothing I can do. I had to make 9 phone calls to tech support and then drive into New York City to go talk to someone in person, only to have my account restored a week later. All right. But most people would not have the wherewithal to do that. Most people, they tell you 9 times, you're done. This is permanent. Thank you for your service and good luck. This is how tech platforms work. And so, if we want to insulate ourselves from that, if you guys appreciate the show and you want to make sure that there's a show to be seen and that we can hang out with you guys and that we can get our stuff out there to you guys, the best way to do that by far is to go to patreon.com/DueDissidence and sign up, because we get 1,000 if you signed up there. At that point, we know we have a show no matter what happens. No matter what happens, all we need is a streaming service, and we will get to you, and we will find you, and we will be there. Absent that, there's no guarantees. There are no guarantees.
Hang out outside your house in a very creepy manner on a bicycle late at night once we get your address through the Patreon.
Yeah, see, Richard, I had to message Uber 50 times. I know. I've been there. That, to get activated. I know exactly how that works. That's why it doesn't surprise me, right? And so that's it. It's really that simple. If you can help us out, that's the best way to do it.
Better than PBS. We're not going to send you a fucking cheesy tote bag you're never going to use.
Exactly. I know people saying they'll follow us anywhere. We appreciate that very much. And thank you. Thank you all very much. And please do not. We've had some people say, like, I super chatted you 5 out of my last $10. Please don't do that. We don't want anybody doing that. Keep, if you're close to the wall, please.
I've been there, man, and I would definitely not have been given $5 to us.
Yeah. So please don't do anything like that,
friend.
That's
a rough place.
Exactly. No, exactly. But if you're some people, if you super chat us often, like I said, if you have it to spare and you want to help support this project, that is by far and away the best way to do it. And so we just had to make a little bit more of that presentation and pitch to you this evening. Do you want
to put a link in the chat or anything?
Yeah, I'll put the link in the chat. Well, I have the link right up here. The link is up here. It's just patreon.com/DueDissidence. I don't know if we could post links in the chat, but that's it. Very simple.
Right. Yeah. They fuck with you.
Very simple. Patreon.com/DueDissidence. We put it up on display here. And they are in the descriptions to all of our videos, and they'll be in the description to this one once we get done. And to answer Joyce's question, Patreon Substack, in terms of the cuts that they take, they are about even. Axel, Pardon me. Thanks for the $5. Can't wait to watch Manchin and Sinema put the nail in the Biden coffin in the Senate. Well, Manchin, now they're talking about a no labels run. No labels is the next thing that's freaking them out, right? Which, look, man, I got to say, in terms of that, I mean, I would never support a no labels candidate, but I say go for it. Go for it. Like, the more chaos can be sown in this cycle, I think the better will ultimately be. Right. So if Biden gets picked apart from the left on Cornell West side and from the quote unquote center on Manchin's side, I think that would be very good. I think that would be a very good thing.
We want chaos in Gotham City.
Right. You need to disrupt. You need to disrupt. And I'd say the more voices, the better, even the shitty ones, like the no labels. Right. I mean, I can't think of a downside to it. MJ Anti-Imperialist Party. Thank you for the $2. Infrared interview UPS worker while AOC plays games. Did Infrared interview UPS workers? I know that a few of them got around, and we are going to get to the UPS workers in a little while. And that UPS issue is far from settled. They have a tentative agreement, but they have the first few weeks of August to vote on the deal. And so I would love to interview a UPS worker on the show. As a former UPS worker myself, I think that would be a great talk. So hopefully
I believe frenemy of the show, Jordan, interviewed one who said they could have gotten a better deal if they had held out.
Yeah. I saw a little bit of that. There was one that was quoted in the Washington Post, which we'll talk about when we do the segment. But yes, there is some question as to how much support this deal will garner. Courtney, still wonder when that last name of Keaton stopped being pronounced Vice. Well, it is. I mean, technically, it is Vice in German. They would say it's Vice, but Weiss is German for white, and so Keaton White is the English version of my name. But here in the States, they tend to call it Weiss. Indeed,
I did not know Weiss was white. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Keaton White. So My brother's name is Ian Weiss, so it's John White. Ruthless Criticism. Thanks for the $5. Appreciate it. Ruthless Criticism really making it rain. Said you have money to spare. Thank you. Putting your money where your mouth is tonight. Appreciate that, my friend. Vivek is committing to a strong case to pardon Trump. He takes his endorsement post any FUBAR. Oh, you mean if Trump just sort of implodes, would he endorse Vivek because Vivek is promising to pardon him? I mean, he would certainly choose him over DeSantis. I think that's putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, I could definitely see a situation. We talked about this in the last show. If things between DeSantis and Trump get really hostile and Trump implodes, it's possible that a lot of Trump's support would not defect to DeSantis, but would defect to the next person down the list.
Right.
At this point, that looks like it might be Ramaswamy. By the time people vote, it could be somebody else, not quite sure yet. But yes, I definitely see that as a plausible, if not likely, a plausible situation in terms of how everything unfolds.
Well, when we covered Vivek on the last show, right? Or the show before?
Yeah, the last show. Yeah.
And we were talking about his political skills. I was making the argument that I think some people didn't agree with, but I'm going to stand by that. I think the Republicans would love to nominate a person of color, as long as it's the right person of color and they say the right things in order to inoculate themselves from identitarian attacks. So some people would look at that and say, well, the racist Republicans aren't going to nominate it. I think that's actually an advantage for him. Particularly given that he's articulating their vision of how immigration should be handled. That's perfect for them. Well, you can't call us racist. We have the son of immigrants and an Indian articulating our position. The stuff about the citizenship tests. I mean, we're talking about winning a Republican primary. I think all that stuff plays really well. I think he's a much more natural politician than DeSantis. He's definitely better in front of a camera. I just think DeSantis has more of a machine and he has more of a record to run on. So I think whatever problems he's having now, and again, if you've lived through a few elections, you've seen this narrative before. You've seen the candidate that was done before Labor Day, right? And it's whatever. Let's see what happens going forward in the rest of the year. That's just noise right now. That's the media trying to fill the summer. Not to say his campaign's not having problems, but I think it's a little exaggerated. But yeah, I mean, Vivek is definitely more skilled, and what you're talking about, I don't think it's likely. I think in the end, if Trump implodes, it still goes to DeSantis mostly. But I can see the case for it. It's not a crazy idea.
Yo, DeSantis put out that ad that he's in trouble with because of the Nazi imagery.
Well, he fired the guy or something.
Let me tell you something.
Responsible for it.
I got to tell you though, that imagery is the least cringy part of that ad. That is another just terrible.
What's in the ad?
It has the Kate
I
Bush
haven't
song
seen
that was
it,
famous
actually.
that was made famous by the new Stranger
From
Things,
the, Stranger Things
thing, and just another thing with the Pepe the Frog and the just very, very online, just like really just doubling down on the worst parts of the LGBT ad. Yeah, you got to do something about that because
that's not coming out of the super PAC. That's coming out of his campaign. Well, I guess
the war room.
He fired the person responsible.
Yeah, indeed. Right. Eric Cusseau, happy birthday, Jimmy Dore. Happy birthday, Jimmy Dore. Indeed, we got to that. I didn't know it was Jimmy Dore's birthday today. But yes, thanks for the alert. Happy birthday to Jimmy Dore and Mick Jagger. Dave Morrison, thanks for the $9.99, my friend. Former radio guy here. Would love to join the guys as a third mic and read the super chats on air. Also, I'm 1% Jewish. Oh, well, in that case, sign him up.
Well, all right.
Let's go ahead. That's all you had to say.
As long as it's on your mother's side.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I'm 25% Middle Eastern. Well, I'm about 17, 18% Middle Eastern. Well, I got into this on the last show. I'm half Maltese. Malta is a tiny island in the Mediterranean Sea. So it is a Catholic country. Like culturally, it's very Sicilian, but the language is mostly derived from Arabic because it's actually very close to Libya as well. So I'm probably about 17% North African, which, like I said, I have way more African blood in me than Elizabeth Warren has Native American blood in her. So by her logic,
I have a lot more Asian blood than she has.
That's true. That's true. Excuse me. These bitches want Nikes. Thanks for the $5. Maybe I'm just biased, but I want them to impeach Biden so bad. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it in terms of like an overall question of like, does he deserve to be impeached? I think he does. I don't know what the political payoff to it would be. Because I tend to think that Biden is weak enough as it is where they would probably be better off just running on the issues, just because he's very, very weak on the issues. Now, the only caveat I would say to that is that this overall theme of the weaponization of the federal government is going to loom very large over the race. And so if they can paint a picture of a very corrupt first family that is sicking its goons in all forms, both in terms of government, apparatchiks, and the sort of, private oligarch sort of arms of the state, they may be able to swing a few points in there. But I think generally his overall incompetence and mismanagement of kitchen table issues is their best bet. I think that's their best bet.
Politically, yeah.
I think so.
But I'm with him. It'd be a hell of a TV show.
It would. Hey, it'd be good for the podcast. That's for sure. It'd be good. Works for us. Yeah. Have at it.
Those for the win. Less work. We know what our show will be about for 9 months.
Exactly. I think normies, as dogs for the win, were okay with the second Trump impeachment. Yeah. Well, yeah. By that point, yeah, over the January 6th stuff, yes. And like I said, the first one, it's difficult. We'll never know how that could have influenced the polls because it just became null and void once the pandemic hit, a month after the verdict was rendered. So we never really got to know that.
Well,
sure.
I mean, just one data point that's interesting. Nobody watched it.
Right.
Like that's all of these media pundits kept decrying the total lack of interest the American public had in it. because in their little world, they were watching every day dutifully, but most of America didn't give a fuck.
Right. Exactly. Axel, in 3 years, we went from aquatic life returning to Venice to the Mediterranean being on fire. Yep.
You're right.
During the lockdowns, the environment started to recover. All people had to do was leave the world the fuck alone. That's all I got to do. I don't got to create battery operated reusable shopping bags. No, just chill and let the earth heal itself, and it will. But we're not going to do that. Ruthless Criticism, thanks for the $5. Hit me up, boys. New job is good. Yeah, must be. What are you doing over there? Do you wear your Karl Marx t-shirt to your new job? I can strike voluntarily or involuntarily. Pay the channel for at least a week, I think. All right, well, beautiful. You're already a Patreon supporter there, so I would be hitting you up for more, but you already support us very, very generously there, and thank you very much. Be your marks and angles. Beautiful. Thank you, Ruthless Criticism. We appreciate that. Joy says, are we going to Rumble? Well, we're on Rumble all the time. And, look, like we said, I feel like our best shows are the patron shows, and we're going to start doing some half YouTube, half Rumble shows. I feel much looser during those shows. I feel like I'm just able to perform better on those shows because I don't have this other processor spinning in the back of my brain checking everything I say. I can just focus on what we have to say. So I love those shows. I would love to be able to not depend on this platform. I don't want to leave this platform, but I don't want to have to depend on the platform.
Right.
That's the goal. And you could all help make that happen. We had 4 patron signups since we made that plea. So we thank you very much for those of you guys who heeded those words. We appreciate that very, very much. It really is a huge, huge help. Your name will be up in lights on the next scroll. By the way, if you don't want your name, because a few people who signed up asked not to be included on the scroll, so just send us a message if you don't. But those of you who did, unless we hear otherwise, we will put your name on the next scroll. But thank you very much. That is super, super helpful. You truly are the backbone of the operation.
And we are going to be doing a fundraising drive. We'll announce the details Sunday to send us to 4 primary states during the election season. We want to do what? Massachusetts, Iowa, Texas.
I'm doing Massachusetts and New Hampshire since I live close to there and I got to be back for the wife and kids. And then we're sending Russell out to corn country in Iowa and down to Texas. Deep in the heart of Texas goes Russell Dovular for the primaries. We are looking forward to that. So we will be announcing a fundraising drive. But folks, also, I got to say this. Even if you do not sign up as a paid subscriber on Substack, please go and sign up for the free version. Because one thing that happens is, we've used up our warning. Hopefully they reverse it. I'm not counting on them doing that. So next time we, piss them off, we're dark for a week. Hopefully that never happens, right? But if it should happen and we go dark for a week, we will not have any means to get in touch with you unless you follow us on one of these other platforms. You don't get to come on YouTube and announce that you're banned for a week. They just ban you for a week. So Twitter is great, but Substack is the best because even if you follow us on Twitter, you might miss the tweet. Substack, you will get an email from us telling you when the show is and where it is. So if we have to do Rumble exclusive streams, the way you're going to find out about that is not here on YouTube. If we can't be on YouTube for a week, it's going to be over on Rumble or through Substack. We send out emails the day of the show saying, hey, we're on Rumble tonight, 8 p.m., 7 p.m., whatever. It's free to sign up. Like I said, if you can be a paid member, it really helps, but it also really helps to sign up for free. So DueDissidence.substack.com. It's just an email list. You'll get alerts every time we're going to go live. You will get audio versions of all of these live streams that you can listen to on any major podcast player or right through the Substack app. They have a podcast app built into Substack now, which is great. And all kinds of stuff. When we drop a written piece here and there, you will get that on Substack as well. So that's a great tool. Please go and sign up for free, even if you can't donate. Courtney, super important to super chat, Patreon, and member up. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for spreading the word, Courtney, and for the donation. Thank you very, very much.
So somebody mentioned having a sister channel. Technically, we do for my theater days. So we do have a lifeboat we could escape to if we had to.
We could. But that is obviously a worst case thing. And look, if we get a strike here and we disappear for a week, we'll go to Rumble for a week. Last time when we switched to Rumble, we had a great turnout. We trust we'll have a great turnout again if you guys stay in touch. You gotta give yourself another way to get in touch with us. It's hugely important. Look, they came after RBN. They gave RBN 2 strikes. They took one of them away. RBN still has 1 strike, which is expiring in a few weeks. But obviously, Pasta, Convo Couch, they got demonetized a couple years ago. Graham Elwood, I know he's in the news recently for something that I don't want to talk about. I think he's having a bad time. Obviously, I don't. That's the kind of gossip story we don't cover here because that's just interpersonal.
I don't even. Oh, he's in the news just because he's attacking the birthday boy.
Yeah. And look, that was just look. I look at that. I see a guy who needs some help. He's going through, he's I think he feels very down on his luck. I think he feels like he's gotten screwed over by, Obama's Justice Department, followed by YouTube. He's caught some bad breaks, but obviously that was not a healthy way of handling.
What happened with?
He went on this crazy rant about alcoholics, how he doesn't like alcoholics. He hopes he said a bunch of shit I don't even want to repeat now that we got the censors crawling up our ass, but just really, really dark stuff. And people were asking if we're going to cover that. No, because the Vanguard, they're the kind of bottom feeders who get off on well, look at what he's saying. That's not us. There was no issue to be raised there except the fact that he needs to figure out some things. That's
if there's yes, I mean that's our standard. We'll cover gossip if there's a bigger story contained in the gossip to cover, if it illuminates a bigger issue. But just like he said,
if it's a guy having a nervous breakdown on air, that's not amusing to me. First of all, I don't take any pleasure in watching that. I know the Vanguard guys were laughing through that; they thought it was really funny. I don't. I saw a pretty desperate guy who needs to figure some things out. But no, we're not going to do a segment on that and get clicks off of that. We will not be clipping this portion of it. Just happened to come up because the point is he got demonetized unfairly too. It can happen. And when it happens, it is devastating. It's crippling. And so, like I said, the way to help us defend against that, like Courtney just said, becoming a member. All right, I think we made our point with the membership. I think we've communicated that. Paul Chu, can't you guys just hop on the Marianne train? Yeah, that's a good backup too. We could just do that.
Oh yeah.
Why not?
She loves us.
Yeah.
We're her favorite. Hang on, I want to address a hate watcher here. So you guys are both talking about taking, I guess you mean Ellen, both, because Keaton's not going anywhere for the next 18 years. Or what are they, 4 now? You got 14 years. You guys are talking about
I never liked traveling in the first place.
Yeah, he doesn't like traveling. This fucking guy goes to Connecticut. He gets attacked by a horse fly.
I got viciously attacked by a killer fly.
I go to India. I don't even get the runs. You guys are both talking about taking international flights to the very areas on fire and then lamenting that us humans aren't doing anything about climate change. All right, so listen. We all want to feel like we have agency and all that. And we do, but the people you have to go after are not people like me who are, not flying on a private jet, but going very economically in coach with a few hundred other people. It's the 11 corporations that are responsible for 80% of the emissions. 11 corporations. It's not the people in their plastic bags. It's 11 freaking corporations. I recycle, but honestly, it's like the button I was talking about on the lampposts in New York. Somebody told me they have them other places too. I thought it was a New York thing. Where you push the button to change the light. It doesn't do anything, right? You go recycle your fucking heart out. Unless you do something about the 11 corporations doing 80% of the emissions, you're pissing in the wind. You're not really doing anything. So my international flight is not the make or break of climate change.
Agreed. John Moore, Who's a member? Thank you, John Moore. Honestly, what are the chances West actually sticks it out till the general? I love him, but they will throw everything at him, and I sadly don't think he isn't. I sadly don't think he's ready to be a Stein Nader level pariah. I worry about that too, if I'm being honest.
I worry about that.
I do worry.
That's
about
why
that.
I mentioned it, because
yes.
One thing to say you're going to do that.
No, I do worry about
thing to do it.
I do, because he was until 5 minutes ago in good standing with a lot of the people who he's not going to be very well talked about in a year from now if he sticks it out. And that's absolutely my promise to you, a question that we will ask him if we should be so fortunate as to get an interview, because that's something I would want to know.
Definitely.
Because it is definitely a valid concern. Scott, thanks for the $20. Keep up the good work. See you with Jimmy Dore. Yeah, we'll be at the Jimmy Dore show August 25th. We'll be in the audience. So, yeah, we're looking forward to meeting some of you guys there. I know a lot of you guys are going. Still have a big audience in the New York City area. So if you're in the area, yeah, come say hello. We will be there. Ruthless Criticism, thanks for the $2 again. Russell, unboxing more books would be great. Yeah. You know, my kids
I really like the spine on this one. It's very well constructed.
There are people who, you know, they talk about unboxing. There are people who have YouTube channels devoted to toys. Like my kids like watching YouTube shows about toys. You know, I had a video that because my kids were watching, they wanted to watch YouTube the other day. So I filmed them because they always give the same answer. I said, hey, you know, Daddy has a YouTube show. Why don't we watch his show? And they say, no. And then I asked him, I said, why not?
Well, that's a good sign. They
say, yeah, it's a good sign. No. And I asked him, why not? And they say, because that show is stupid. That's what they say.
Is that what they say?
Yeah, they say our show is stupid.
You said they were smart kids.
Raised a couple of libs. Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew?
You know what I started watching that Kit, among many others, recommended, and I'm really enjoying it? The Fall of Civilizations.
Oh,
podcast.
Okay, cool.
Because that's up on YouTube. Yeah, no, I'm on like the 4th episode, like the Norse who settled Greenland and how eventually their colonies just disappeared. So yeah, it's good. It's really good.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah, I have heard of that show, and I know they have some very, you know, well developed episodes. So, yeah, thanks, Kit, for that recommendation. Caleb Tatro, thanks for the $4.99. Chris Christopherson is a real one. To your point the other day, old school country outlaws were anti-establishment representatives of the blue collars. Yep. And I'm still working on my piece.
That's it. I mean, you know, not to open the can of worms, but, you know, a lot of people, I think, expected us to have a knee-jerk defense of Jason Aldean because all the people that you most hate are bitching about it. But you can't fall into that because that's how the libs think, man. They're knee-jerk. They just react. They don't think. You got to take it case by case. It can be hard not to be reflexive. Particularly when all the bad actors who always say these things in a dishonest way are out there attacking this. It's hard not to instinctively want to defend it. But I stand by the take that we had on that. I've thought about it because a lot of people came at us about it. And no, man, nah. I'm sorry. Yeah, if you understand how much goes into making a video like that, there are no people of color in his idyllic vision of small town by accident. That is purposeful. I had someone actually say, maybe no black people showed up to the casting. Listen, man, at that level, you're not putting up flyers on a fucking lamppost. All right, you're calling the local agents and telling them how you want to cast that. Interestingly, I understand that the old white guy in the wheelchair talking about how everyone helps each other out in those towns. I understand they cut that actually from the video now. They've re-released it without that. I'm gonna say this though, because some people were saying, well, you know, you're not from there. Listen, I've said this a lot. Working class people are the same from one end of the country to the other, and I've driven cross country 5 times, and I've lived in a lot of its regions. I grew up with a neighborhood version of that. I grew up with yeah, try that in my fucking neighborhood. You see how you get your fucking ass kicked. I thought it was stupid, macho bullshit then. I think it's stupid, macho bullshit now. I thought that when I was fucking 14, and my mind hasn't changed about it. It's the same shit, different accent, different regional expression of that. And also what I thought about it as I began to really mature and think about it, and I have not changed my mind about that either, is that people in these kinds of in this social class are encouraged to lean into their supposed cultural superiority or moral superiority as a way to distract them from how much they're being fucked over. That's what I saw.
Big thing, yeah.
And look, those people were my friends. Those people were my friends. My friends wound up being in those union jobs that got taken away from them. My friends wound up in those construction industries with the degrading quality of life and benefits and hourly wages. So when I saw all of that shit, we're not like the fucking people over in Manhattan. I saw them as being duped into emphasizing these cultural signaling instead of actually fighting their real enemy and fighting for things that would actually improve their lives. That it was like that in my neighborhood, and I think it's like that in these towns. And I think singers who get up there and play to that shit, they're not helping. They're not helping the people in those towns with that kind of a distraction.
All right, we're going to do one more here because let's keep it sane. Thanks for the $4.99. Very much appreciate it. We will get to all these super chats as the evening continues. But right now, we do want to start our main segments of the evening. We just had a good talk with you guys, and we have a Rumble rant, which we are going to get to soon as well. Don't worry, we have not forgotten that. And thank you, Jake, for putting that in the chat for us, in the private chat. All right, folks. So AOC called out by New York Magazine. Look at that. One of these snot-nosed, pretentious, intellectual lib rags finally caught on a few years after we've all been saying.
Yeah, they caught up.
Yeah, they caught up. They caught up to the times. AOC is just a regular Democrat now. New sound drop for this.
Oh, my God.
I didn't even know that was coming.
Yeah, I put that in there as a surprise.
Oh my God!
You don't say.
Yeah, we'll get a lot of use out of that one.
Yeah, indeed, folks. Don't worry, we're not going to read the whole thing. It's just kind of hilarious to read this now because these are points that we made, a few years ago. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's recent appearance on the Pod Save America podcast had, for me, the feeling of a final disappointment, the kind that's a little sad but brings a set of quixotic hopes to a close. AOC appeared on the popular Crooked Media show to announce her endorsement of Joe Biden for president in the 2024 election. To deliver that particular endorsement while appearing on that particular podcast, where former Obama administration staffers define the limits of acceptable left-of-center opinion, was to send a very deliberate message. It was AOC's last kiss-off to the radicals who had supported her, voted for her, donated to her campaign, and made her unusually famous in American politics, the beneficiary of a wholly unique cult of personality that is now starting to come undone. I don't know if it was her final one. I think her final kiss off to us was a while back. So far back, I don't even remember when it was. But it takes a while for these ideas to get through the very thick skulls of the intelligencer, New York Magazine writers.
I can see what he's getting at. That was like a final double middle finger to her original base. Like that confluence of things, to be on Pod Save America endorsing Joe
and to endorse Joe Biden. Well, the thing is, there will be another one, right? There will be another one sooner than later, I think. An endorsement of a sitting president, after all, doesn't have to be a ceremonial affair. Ocasio-Cortez could have sent out a tweet in making her announcement in a forum where the hosts were saying that a vote for anyone but Joe Biden was a vote for Donald Trump, a distillation of the hollow "we're not Trump" message that the Democrats have been loudly pushing for the past 7 years. AOC was putting a bow on a half-decade-long drift from radical outsider to establishment liberal. Since taking office in January 2019, she has deferred to party leadership again and again on the issues that matter, even as she has made token gestures of resistance to solidify the illusion that she is a gadfly. And increasingly, she seems stung by criticism from the left to point out where she appears ready to simply embrace her party and its politics with open arms.
God.
In a 2021 interview with a publication of the Democratic Socialists of America, Ocasio-Cortez attacked left critics of the Biden administration on identitarian grounds. We really have to ask ourselves, what is the message that you're sending to your black and brown and undocumented members of your community, to your friends, when you say nothing has changed? This is a stark example of what socialist critics have accused Democrats of for years, that they forbid criticism and enforce loyalty to the party through vague accusations of racism and references to people of color and other marginalized groups. Yet during the very period in which she gave that interview, the Biden administration had been busily deporting tens of thousands of undocumented immigrants, almost all of them black and brown. We're going to cut it there, folks, and be merciful, because reading that piece was just amazing. And birthday boy Jimmy Dore actually tweeted out something to the effect of, this is what he's been saying for years. This is what a lot of us have been saying
right-winger
for years. Right. It's very obvious. Right. When we say it, we're right-wingers. And now here you have it, right? From this sort of liberal, progressive outlet saying she's just another Democrat at this point. But this article came as more of a surprise to some of his peers in the space. So here is Alex Salmon, who, full disclosure, we interviewed a couple of years ago during the Build Back Better negotiations. I think he's a quality reporter, seemed like a smart guy. It was very nice when we interviewed him. But he, still on the AOC train, unfortunately, seems to be. He comments on the article in a quote tweet, literally anything about AOC will do numbers, but this piece is a real cautionary tale of the risks of assigning a politics piece to someone who only reads politics at a 10th grade level, rife with factual errors and misunderstandings about how politics actually works. Big, what is that? Is that a cringe face? Is that what that means? Big cringe. The intellectual framework.
Is that what that means?
Is that what that means? I don't know.
I don't know. So someone younger in the chat tell us what that means.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a cringe face. The intellectual framework of this piece is like a picture matching game. Pod Save America equals bad. Met Gala equals bad. No substance beyond that, just coloring between those lines. Crimes here include doing outreach to mainstream libs, being a visible public figure, using the current administration to accomplish things. Accomplish what things exactly? What things? Like what?
Yeah.
What?
What did she accomplish?
What did she accomplish? Name one goal that she actually pushed.
Naming post offices does not count.
Inside game is bad. Outside game is also bad. If AOC was serious, she would be handing out the Daily Worker on Capitol Hill all day. Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying. Yeah. Blows my mind that the vision for an effective, unbought leftist congresswoman, puts that in quotes. Is he playing the sexism card there?
Seems serious, to be. She'd be handing out Muhammad Speaks on the
right. Exactly.
steps of the Capitol. That would be a mixed message.
Yeah. Blows my mind that the vision for an effective, unbought leftist congresswoman seems to be a Spartacus League member interrupting a socialist chapter meeting. Forget Palestine. Ideal AOC would be crashing every White House cabinet meeting to defend the deformed worker state of North Korea. I don't want to have to do a giant-ass thread, but it's not really an issue of opinion. On the substance, AOC's voting record is the leftmost bound of Congress. You can just look it up. Even little stuff like this. Is there any doubt which way she voted? Never. She's talking about to raise the pilot retirement age from 65 to 67, including Cass, R. Jayapal, Pocan, Barbara Lee. Okay, so this really kind of says it here. Her voting record.
Right.
And actually, Nathan Robinson, to his credit, of all people, quote tweeted him and saying,
he has his moments.
Yeah, it has its moments. He's saying it's not just a matter of the voting record, obviously. It's a matter of how you use your office. He cited Shama Sawant. Shama Sawant used her office the way an activist would use their office. That's what we were hoping for with AOC and the squad, not just that they would vote the right way. And by the way, she has not always voted the right way, far from it. But beyond voting the right way, you have to wield power, right, through your activist base. You have to weaponize that activist base of support against the party. And she has obviously willfully failed to do that, so much to the point where you can't even say she failed to do that. You say she never really had interest in it. But here's Brianna Joy Gray quote tweeting him. Freddie, who's the writer of the piece, the writer of the article, does what so many establishment reporters will not. Detail a real-world example of how elected progressives declined to use the power they held with a narrow House majority. That's what I was just talking about. But ignorant, uninformed shills, man, shots fired there, hope you won't notice the truth because you're as ignorant as they are. And then Alex fires back here. Alas, my day has come and I have not a podcast to sell. Cheap shot. I tell you, we've obviously taken issue with Brianna Joy Gray on a number of issues over the past year or so, but no one gets the kind of cheap shots that she takes, that she gets. I mean, she really gets it from a lot of people. Then he goes on, I don't have a vested interest in whether AOC is good or bad. Oh, no. It just so happens that she's pretty good, and that is a less assailable proposition for a real lazy approach to left-wing politics. If only you had something to show for these arguments that you make. Again, it goes back to what policy accomplishment can you point to that the squad can take full ownership of? Zero. None.
Exactly. And if you look at his thread, it's very vague. It's very ad hominem. Because if you get into the details, the whole case he's making falls apart. He doesn't touch one of the most damning things in that article, the description of her being at the border when it was Trump and not saying a word about it once Biden got elected and we still have kids in cages. He doesn't touch that. And he says vaguely, look at her voting record. Why don't you name something she actually accomplished? It's very easy to take a vote that's going to burnish your progressive bona fides when there's absolutely no possibility of it having any impact.
Right.
Anytime she has been in a position where the progressive vote was in one direction and the establishment was very invested in going in another direction, and those progressive votes could make the difference, she caved every time. Every time. The article talks about the Iron Dome vote, right? Which I consider the moment that was it. That was it. Some people say
right. That if I had to point to a final send off or a final kiss off, whatever the fuck the phrase was, that's what I would say.
That's it. That's the moment she truly inked the contract in her blood, and after that never looked back. And they've all done it. I find watching Ilhan Omar now downright creepy because that vapid smile and the makeup, it's like she got a frontal lobotomy over the last few months. She just doesn't even seem like the same person. So whenever these people try to defend the squad, when Ryan Grimm does it, it's always very vague. It's very general because you can't get into the specifics and defend these people. Tell me what AOC has done for anybody since she's been in Congress. You tell me what she has accomplished. One thing, please. One thing. All she's doing is putting a younger, more diverse face on the aging mummies who are ultimately going to have to succumb to the grave, if not to retirement. And
he's on Mitch McConnell today, freeze at the podium.
Yes. Yeah. So these people, look, eventually, Feinstein and Pelosi, these people will be gone eventually. And they're grooming their ideological successors. And they've made AOC completely their creature. And I don't say she hasn't had agency in that. She made a choice. She said it right when she first got in. You can accomplish a lot in one term if you really don't care about getting reelected. Well, something made her care. Something made her care pretty early on, because she certainly did not continue in that direction. People who say she was always an op, I don't buy that. What I will say is she was always, as many people her age are, inclined towards identity politics. She did always kind of talk that shit. We didn't mind it too much when it was in service to our goals. I mean, it always rankled me a little. It always raised the hackles on the back of my neck. But as long as we were all pulling in the same direction, we looked the other way on it. Now that she's a tool of the establishment, that stuff is just like nails on a chalkboard when she says those things.
Yeah. And when it comes to a writer like Alex, because, we interviewed Alex a couple of years ago during the Build Back Better negotiations, he does the kind of reporting. I mean, he's a vote counter, right? He follows, how politicians are swayed to vote on certain ways. He's a very inside baseball kind of guy, and he's good at that. Like, he has a definite skill there. Like, I think he's a good writer. I've read a lot of his work. But I feel like that kind of reporting sometimes limits you in terms of your understanding of, ironically, how politics actually works, right? Because the kind of politics that AOC was sent there to practice are not simply vote counting, right? It has to do with leveraging outside power against inside power.
Right.
And there was just no understanding there of that.
Well, it's like you spend too much time at the court of Versailles, and you get caught up in the etiquette of the court of Versailles, and you stop being aware of the peasants eating the frog legs outside and getting ready to revolt. Right?
Exactly.
Well, no, I mean, certainly if you are going to be at court, you must wear this sort of stocking. Anybody knows that. If you don't know that, you know nothing about how power works.
Right. Exactly. All right. So let's read some more super chats here. We got a few that we got to get to. Ruthless criticism. I'm going to need 30 minutes at the end of the episode to argue this Vivek position. Yeah. How much is that going to cost? Yeah, keep it coming, my friend. That's all I got to tell you about that. Keep it coming.
More money.
Yeah, feel free to call in. Is it going to take you a half an hour to argue the Vivek position? I think we can do it.
Hey, man,
I understand your Vivek position.
I think for someone who's staked his entire professional reputation on the DeSantis campaign roaring back to life, I've been pretty complimentary about Vivek. What's there to argue? I think I've made a pretty strong case for him, if anything.
Once DeSantis and Vivek implode, that's it. You guys are going to both have so much egg on your face. I'm going to have to do the show myself.
Seriously.
Russell's going to have to go into hiding, and then that's it. These bitches want Nikes. Thanks for the $5. I also want to say, y'all are my favorite politics channel, and I follow a lot of them on a wide political spectrum. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say that. We appreciate that. These bitches want Nikes. Appreciate that very much. You got a couple more Patreon subscribers. Very good. That's the key tonight, by the way. That's the goal, folks, for the evening. We want to foolproof this operation. We want to bulletproof this operation, and a bunch of free Substack subscribers just came in. We really like to see that, because that makes it easy for you guys to get in touch with us. That's very, very important. So thank you guys very much for that. Ruthless criticism again. Thanks for the $2. I want to know what job you got. That's what I want to know. You keep telling us about this new job. What's your new job? Tell me that in a super chat for, let's say, $9. Best of luck to Graham. Honestly, yeah, that was not a pleasant thing to watch. It really wasn't. Honestly. Yeah, I didn't
even really see this because the story just wasn't even interesting.
I watched the actual stream. I watched the actual stream.
What stream is this? What are we talking?
He has a channel, and he had Lee Camp on, which was really awkward because Lee Camp is sitting there while he's spilling his guts out and venting about his life.
This is what Vanguard was commenting on.
Oh yeah.
So this was an episode on Graham Elwood has a channel, and he was talking to Lee Camp. Is that what happened?
Yeah, but he starts venting. First of all, he's late getting on the show. his backdrop is falling apart. I mean, he was having a breakdown. It's not fun to watch, but yeah, definitely. I echo that sentiment. Katie Nick, thanks for the $2. I just signed up for Patreon. How do I get links? I think you figured it out because you just put it in the private chat that you got it. So I think you're in. I don't see you in the studio here, but I did see your private chat. So there you are. It looks like you did figure it out. But yes, once you join the Patreon, you get email alerts whenever we're going to go live with the call-in links and email alerts when we're going to do patron exclusive streams. And thank you very much, KD Nick, for signing up. We appreciate that very, very much. Sam Fish X on Rumble asks, I have always wondered what your guys' take on Peter Zeihan is and his idea that generational population decline is leading to societal collapse. So here's $10 to butter you up and answer. Well, I haven't read that theory of his, but I think part of what's leading to...
Can you repeat it?
Yeah, here, I'll put it up on the screen here. Here, hold on. I will copy and paste this.
That sounds like my jam there.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. So now Russell will have it. I think there are other dynamics leading to it, honestly, rather than as opposed to just population loss. But yeah, I haven't read that. I haven't seen that articulated in as many words. But I will look into that. It's an interesting question. That's kind of in my zone as well.
I've been hearing this from different people for a long time. Now, that doesn't mean, long time in historical terms. I've been hearing things like this for about 10 years, which is not a long time in history. So it doesn't mean that it's not going to come, that the consequences of it aren't yet to arrive. I would also relate that to, I don't think he gets into this. He's just talking about changing social mores. But we talked about this on the show. Testosterone levels for men are dropping exponentially generation by generation. They think it's plastics disrupting the endocrine system, but it's cumulative. So where your father, this started in 1970. So where your father is, you're going to start there and then drop. And then the next generation will drop from there. They've actually projected that if this continues at this rate, we'll be unable to reproduce naturally within the next 50 years, I believe it is. So in the meantime, that I don't know how much of an effect that's having on fertility now, but it seems like it probably is. But the greater element that he's focusing on is, the Western model, right? One kid, 2 kids, right? Like we're not reproducing at replacement levels. Same in China, same in Russia. So yeah, I mean, there probably will be a population collapse if that trend continues. The question is, does that make things worse or better? I mean, a lot of people say the Renaissance was caused by the Black Death, right? Because it freed up all that wealth, right?
That's the question. I don't know. I mean, when you talk about social collapse, we've been talking about that for years, since before we rerun on YouTube. We actually talked more about it a couple of years ago than we do now. I think there are a lot of factors for that. But yeah, it's a very, very good question. And thank you for the donation. Corey Weichman, thanks for the $19.99. What's up with Pasta and RFK? He's smart enough to realize that even if RFK is a good candidate, he is not, that running in the Democratic Party is pointless if they rig it anyway. Yeah, Pasta's been going back and forth with some folks about that. He actually called me yesterday and said it's time for us to have a second conversation, a follow-up, which we'll probably do over on the Convo Couch. And he was very nice. He's a very, very nice guy and a very smart guy. So I love Pasta. I'll take him over to side salad any day of the week, despite whatever disagreements we have.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, look, I think even Pasta has said that, while he considers the Israel issue one of many that he deems, if not more important, I don't want to put words in his mouth. He thinks that's one of many issues, and he thinks that despite RFK's flaws, he's still an interesting and worthwhile candidate to amplify in certain respects on certain issues. Like he's even said in some of these exchanges that he's not supporting him in the sense that he's not advocating that people vote for him. But look, I do think, look, we talked a little bit about this on the Patreon only show. Like I said, we're not tempting the censors here this evening since they're up our ass now. But the Schmate-Clarington Schmeclaration, has 937,000 signatures on it. There are tens of thousands of more credible people on that issue alone that you can amplify that are not RFK, that don't come with the baggage on all the other stuff. And so if you're talking about needing an advocate for the issues that he advocates on, it's not that he doesn't make forceful points and that he's not a powerful advocate as a presidential candidate, as a Kennedy, right? He certainly brings attention to those issues in ways that other people can't. But if you're an indie media, lift those voices. And I'm not saying Pasta doesn't. He does. He just did yesterday, I think. So like keep at that. This guy is not worth the investment. He's not worth the energy it takes to defend him when he steps in it. There's no return on investment for any worthwhile movement to back this guy, I don't think.
I mean, Pasta, I don't know if we're supposed to talk about this, but it turns out he's actually a cousin of Santo Trafficante, and he feels a little guilty about what his family's done to that family. So that's a big part of his investment in RFK. Look,
I'm gonna have to give him your phone number so he could take that up with you.
Yeah.
I didn't say it, Pasta. Him. I'll text you Russ's number after.
We kid. I knew this was going to happen after the congressional testimony, and we said it. We said when we covered it, Stacey Plaskett, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they're the fucking scum of the earth. These people are fucking repulsive. The idea that they tried to censor a censorship hearing, it's Kafka-esque. It's stunning. Their lack of political instincts and just their authoritarianism to a level that they fall into the absurdities that you expect from totalitarians, right? Totalitarians, they have no sense of irony, right? Like that, to even make a gesture like that. So yes, all of that. Sure, yes, he should not be muzzled. He should have his freedom of speech and people should have it out. And it was a disgrace what they did in that hearing. Nonetheless, as soon as he came out of that hearing and I saw him jump on the free speech language and the free speech movement, and I saw today on Twitter, he's really playing that up now and trying to jump in out front of that parade. I really, really care about that issue. And I understand, for some people that the virus of unknown origin is their number one thing, and they feel like no one has fought for them. As Keaton just pointed out, there are thousands of signatories on the declaration that shall remain nameless.
On the Declaration of Independence, yeah.
There are a lot of people you could go to who have a lot more credibility. And as somebody who cares deeply about freedom of speech, I don't want that fucking crackpot anywhere near that issue, because what he has done to the very legitimate conversation that needs to be had around the virus of unknown origin, I don't want him discrediting the advocates for freedom of speech with his involvement. Go away. We got this. We have much more credible voices than you to advocate for that. Go away, please. We don't need you here.
I mean, I wouldn't fully agree with that, honestly. I would say if he were to actually build some, free speech type institution, like a FIRE type thing, I wouldn't be against that.
We have FIRE.
This doesn't seem to be that. This just seems to be an email list. It seems to be a list for his campaign. It seems to be, okay, we're going to send you out stuff that you're going to share out on social media, ignoring, of course, that the problem is that social media is censored probably more than mainstream media, right? I mean, that's the whole point. All right, Courtney, thank you for the member chat. Oh, Keaton, you're talking about Cornell. He's got a personal press guy, but will not be expanding to the Green Party and doing more interviews till the official announcement next month. All right, so we got to wait till next month for an interview. All right, that's fine. We can, no rush. That's the thing about this, is that the nice thing about running Green and being very likely to wrap that nomination up is that we'll have over a year to do it. So good to know. Thank you, Courtney.
Hang on, I just want to answer this. Yes, of course. That's why I say the way they treated him. He says, I disagree. Everyone has a right to demand their rights. Come on, Russell. Yes. I'm not talking about him demanding his rights. I'm talking about him jumping out in front of the free speech parade and pumping himself up now as a free speech advocate and putting together whatever half-ass email list he's putting together and trying to draw that energy into him. You know what I would respect? If after that hearing, Fire is doing what the ACL used to do regarding freedom of speech, defending it regardless of ideology. Whoever needs to be defended, Fire shows up and they are there. If he came out after that hearing and said, hey, everyone, donate to Fire, they're doing great work, I would totally respect that. That's not what he did. I see him as a hustler.
Okay, we got a bunch of Rumble rants here. We will get to Bonzo Bean says, what did I miss for $1? He also says something in Spanish, which I can't understand, but thank you for that. Bonzo Beans, hands off my frog legs. And then Sam Fish says, thanks for the answer. Here's another $10. Thank you, Sam Fish, so that you can all buy a copy of Zihan's book, The End of the World is Just the Beginning. Makes a strong case for how it happens. I'm not a shill. No, certainly not a shill.
No. I've seen some of his interviews, and I do want to read that book. In fact, I've recently signed up for Audible for all the books that I don't have time to read, but I can listen to at the gym and in transit and stuff. That's on my list.
Beautiful. Jake says that Spanish question translates to where is the library? Interesting. All right. I don't quite understand the question, Bonzo Beans, but thank you for it. Anyway, where's the library?
¿Dónde está la biblioteca?
Oh, see, beautiful. See, so Russell could have read that and translated it for us. Beautiful. All right, we'll take this one and then we'll do our second segment.
Vacation.
There you go. Corey, thanks for the $4.99. I get Pasta's gripe with Cornell in the pandemic, but Cornell actually goes on RBN every couple of weeks and is held accountable and willing to change course. Yep, indeed. I agree. And, look, the good thing about the third party candidate is you have time on your side because you're not up against it on Super Tuesday. You have 8 months from Super Tuesday till the November vote. So you have a lot of time to iron those things out. So I agree with you. All right, folks. So a lot of bad news in this show so far, but we'll get to some hopeful news. Like I said, I won't call this a slam dunk. But yesterday, the Teamsters announced that they had come to a deal with UPS, reaching a tentative agreement that will, at the very least, delay the looming strike that was scheduled to begin on August 1st if no agreement was signed. Now, this tentative agreement will be voted on during the first 3 weeks of August. And so the Teamsters for a Democratic Union tweeted out the terms of the agreement. We've changed the game. The Teamsters win a historic UPS contract. Today, the Teamsters reached the most historic tentative agreement for workers in the history of UPS, protecting and rewarding more than 340,000 UPS Teamsters nationwide. The overwhelmingly lucrative contract raises wages for all workers, creates more full-time jobs, and includes dozens of workplace protections and improvements. The UPS Teamsters National Negotiating Committee unanimously endorsed the 5-year tentative agreement. We won't read all of that. I'll just go through some of the points here that they outline. For those of you who are new to the show or who may have forgotten, I worked as an overnight part-time preloader at UPS during the late summer into the holiday season of 2020. So I know kind of what some of the issues here are all about. We did a segment on this a couple weeks back when a strike seemed more likely. Highlights of the tentative 2023 to 2028 UPS Teamsters National Master Agreement include historic wage increases. Existing full and part-time UPS Teamsters will get $275 more per hour in 2023 and $750 more per hour over the length of the contract. That is more than the wage increases were set annually prior. It was about half that prior to this. So that's a good sign. Existing part-timers will be raised up to no less than $21 per hour immediately. And part-time seniority workers earning more under a market rate adjustment would still receive all new general wage increases. So $21 per hour is up from $16.20. So that is more than a 25% pay increase. So that is significant. Not as much as many were asking for, but significant. General wage increases for part-time workers will be double the amount obtained in the previous UPS Teamsters contract. I got to that already. Wage increases for full-timers will keep UPS Teamsters the highest paid delivery drivers in the nation, improving their average top rate to $49 per hour. That's pretty damn good since overtime kicks in after 9 hours, which most of these guys do at least 1 hour of overtime per day at triple that rate. So, you know, at $49 an hour plus 1 or 2 hours a day at $150 an hour, not too bad there. Current UPS Teamsters working part-time would receive longevity wage increases of up to $150 per hour on top of new hourly raises, compounding their earnings. And the new part-time hires would start at 21 and advance to 23 per hour. And safety and health protections, including vehicle air conditioning and cargo ventilation. UPS will equip in-cab AC in all larger delivery vehicles, Sprinter vans, and package cards purchased after January 1st, 2024. All cars get 2 fans and air induction vents in the cargo compartments. I'm honestly shocked that they didn't have that going in. Because you spend a lot of time in those cargo compartments. I loaded those trucks many a time, and those trucks get really, really packed. So every time you stop that truck, especially at the beginning of the day where you're stepping over things and really pushing things out of the way, you're spending a lot of time in that cargo compartment, which on a 100-degree day, as we've been seeing a lot of 100-degree nows, can get just absolutely brutal. Yep. The air conditioners in the cabs, I know a lot of UPS drivers, because they make such frequent stops because the routes are so loaded, a lot of them drive with the doors open. So the AC is limited as to what it can do, but every little bit helps on a hot day.
At least you're getting that cold air blowing on your face when you get in and out.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. No, I mean, it counts for something, but once again, given how packed these routes are, it's not like you're getting a fully air conditioned cab. It's just more of, you know, ventilation and a blast of cold air, which can obviously, look, every little bit helps on a hot day for sure. Now, we should note that while this does look pretty good on paper, the deal is not inked yet, and many workers had insisted that the minimum wage for part-timers, which are the preloaders overnight, be increased to $25 an hour. And so there are workers prepared to vote no. It does seem unlikely that enough workers will vote no for the deal to fail. But you do have a lot of workers saying that they wanted 25. And, you know, that's one of those things where if you wanted 25, you had to start the negotiation out at 30, 35, because there was going to be some compromise there. And look, I understand why they would want 25, because even though these are part-time workers, the nature of the work, as they've cited, it's brutal manual labor in the dead of night. It's very, very difficult, as they have cited in articles that I've read here, to, you know, balance that with another job and live any semblance of a life, right? I mean, as it is, a lot of these guys will, once you're done in the morning, you'll sleep while the kids are at school, and then you'll wake up, have, you know, dinner with the family, which is really your breakfast, and then you'll go to work. It's either that, or you have to be in bed by 7 o'clock the night before to be up at 1 a.m. And go do a shift at the warehouse. So it is the kind of thing where, even though it's part-time work, the nature of it, how grueling it is, you know, they should be able to do this and nothing else. Like, this should be their job. You shouldn't have to get another gig on top of this because of all of that it is. And at 21, it's still tough to swing that. At 25, it would be a lot easier. So yeah, they absolutely should get 25, but 16 was absurdly low. And so bumping that up to 21, don't forget now overtime, which kicks in after 5 hours on the job, because that's how it works. When you preload at UPS, the first 5 hours are at your base rate, and then overtime kicks in every day. So after the first 5 hours of your shift, if you work a 6-hour shift, you'll do 5 at base rate, 1 at time and a half. So now your overtime rate is up over 30. So that's pretty good, you know. So it does make it is a significant pay increase. Like, that's not nothing. They're not talking about $1 or $2 an hour. You're talking about a 25% increase. And, you know, a lot in this deal is to be celebrated. I think the pilots played a huge role in the final days of this by announcing that they would strike with the UPS workers. I think that really scared management to the point where they really felt that, okay, this is no joke. We really
you can't get scabs to replace pilots.
Right, exactly. How do you make up for that? At that point, it becomes kind of an existential thing. This was also a huge weight off the shoulders of Joe Biden, who was being pressured by the Chamber of Commerce types to intervene on behalf of management, but he was also getting a lot of pressure from the Teamsters. Hey, you better not do to us what you did to the railroad workers. So this really took a pretty tough call off of his back, right? He was definitely very, very relieved that this happened. He gave the quote, "Today's announcement moves us closer to a better deal for workers that will also add to our economic momentum." Yeah, okay. Well, what it definitely does is it spares him the very difficult choice of having to choose labor or management. Shouldn't be a difficult choice, but to a guy like him, it surely was.
Well, victories like this are very important because this is how unions became what they were at one time. We're going to have Thomas Frank on a week from today. And this is something I'm definitely going to want to get into, because in his last book, The People Know, he talks about the 30s and the Depression and the FDR era and how these unions grew. And one of the points he makes is the unions kept growing because they won, because they kept winning. So when you see this union secure these things for these workers, then you want a union, right? That was how it got to the level of power that the unions had at one time in this country. And if you want to rebuild that, you can't keep having shit like the railroad strike, because that just demoralizes people and it makes them feel like, what do I even want a union for? They're not going to do shit for me anyway, and I'm just going to have to pay union dues for what? For what? I mean, that's how I felt. There was a union for the double-decker tour buses, and I felt like, for these wages, I got to pay union dues. I could shit, man. Right. I could have gone in there and smacked around management and got a better deal for myself.
Of course. Well, same thing with the actors. Same thing with SAG. These guys pay thousands of dollars of union dues to sign up. Now it's up to 12%. When I was, you know, scrounging at the entry levels of that business, I was never eligible to join the union. I never wanted to act professionally, so I never had any interest in joining. But back then, it was 9% of SAG members qualified for health insurance, because you have to earn a certain amount to qualify for health insurance through SAG. 9%. Now it's 12%. That's pathetic. That's 1 in 8 union members who, even after paying their union dues, earn enough money, which is only, I believe, $28,000 a year, to qualify for health insurance. So what that means, 7 out of 8 actors in the union earn less than $500 a week acting. In 2023, when the average price of a 1-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom, I forget what the bedroom is, but the average rent, the median rent in America now, something like $1,740 a month. And you got, what, 87% of the actors union making $500 a month wage. I mean, you can't live on that. That's why they wait tables.
Well, yeah. I mean, what's happening with them is unique because it's such an odd industry. It's such a unique industry. It's a little different from companies that print money. Right?
Oh, of course.
I mean, but
Well, that's the other thing. UPS was in a position to give in here because they're taking in $100 billion a year in revenue now. So if they got a situation where now the pilots aren't going to go in the air, now you're at a situation where like, okay, out of sheer like prudential wisdom at that point, you're like, okay, we have to give a little up, or else we're just going to send everything into a tailspin that we might not be able to dig out of, because they're going to continue to have the upper hand.
Well, I'm just saying the reason, I mean, setting aside everything we've been talking about with AI and everything, I believe the whole business model is broken and dead. The whole Hollywood thing, I think, is over. But the reason it's been so difficult for actors to really press is because they never really had any leverage, and the business is unstable in a way that normal businesses are not. It's like if every time you wanted to make money, you had to launch a new product, right? I mean, Apple doesn't have to do that. They just keep reiterating the iPhone, which is kind of what Hollywood has tried to do with all of these reboots and remakes. That's why they've become so risk adverse and uncreative. But from being in that industry, it's it's very high risk. Most things are not going to be hits. You lose money all the time. They get by on the occasional hit. The occasional hit pays for everything else. So it's a very weird industry that way in terms of, well, how much can you afford to pay people when most of your product launches are going to fail? You're in this very weird business where your whole business is constant new product launches. You got to try to sell a new product over and over and over again as a production house, right? And most of them are going to fail. So how much can you afford to pay people for a business where the nature of the business is basically manufacturing failed products and crossing your fingers that one of them is going to hit and pay for everything else?
Right. Exactly.
There's no other business that functions with that premise.
Right. Indeed. All right. So there's a little bit of a B section to this segment here. So as soon as UPS and the Teamsters union reached a tentative agreement to avoid the strike, the UPS stock price ticked up a bit, as we can see in this graphic here. Right after where it says July 25th, you can see that little spike up. I wish I had my cursor here that you could see, but you could see right there, right under where it says max, you could see that increase, and then a very, very sharp decrease as details of the contract, or tentative agreement rather, as those details came to light, and it looked like labor had gotten the better of management, what happens to the stock price? Goes down. Capitalism for you, right? As workers win, investors panic, right? What a great system. But you can see the stock goes up when it says, okay, great, no strike, we have a deal. Oh, wait, labor won, boom, plunged right there. And it was not lost on Larry Kramer that this sudden increase and decrease happened. So here is Larry Kramer being quite concerned that labor may have gotten the better of management.
About the way that UPS stock initially went up when that.
Jim Kramer. What did I say? Larry Kramer? Because we've been talking about Larry. Oh, Jim Kramer.
Jim Kramer, the infamous.
Not Larry Kramer. Larry Kramer is the famous playwright.
Jim, kiss your money goodbye, Kramer.
Jim Kramer. That's right. Apologies.
Just a little exaggeration. How about the way that UPS stock initially went up on that deal? Yes. And then people see that maybe the Teamsters got the best of it.
Although it's a good thing for the U.S. economy that there is not going to be a UPS strike.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that was very important.
You know, it is good. That's like the financial version of Donnie Deutsch saying, if Bernie is the nominee, I'm going to vote for Trump. And Morning Joe says, well, actually, no, you won't. That's like this. Be like, is about to say, God damn it. It's like, well, actually, don't forget. It's
don't show them who we really are.
Right. Don't forget. It's good for the country that there was no strike. Right? Oh, yes. Right.
I mean, just look at the background there, man. Like you had Chipotle and you had something about Israel.
Oh yeah.
That says it all. Chipotle, AT&T, Israel. That sums up the daily programming on CNBC as well as anything.
Indeed.
For the U.S., I do want to know whether Ford is going to talk about whether there's more of an issue with the UAW than Carol Tomei talked about being an issue with Teamsters. Very important to watch that because when you look at the way GM traded, it started going down when Mary Barra, the CEO, glossed over the union issue. That's a big mistake. Sean Fate reminds me of the 1930s UAW, which we don't want. Dave, we also didn't mention...
Oh, the effective UAW.
The effective UAW. Right. Exactly. So there you have it. I mean, that gives it away.
Yeah, Jim Cramer, he has a lot of mask-off moments. If you can find it, it really was making the rounds during the Wall Street Bets moment, that brief shining moment that a bunch of Gen Z schmucks broke short-selling financial services institutions. Jim Cramer, when he started speaking against them, they dug up video of him before he had a TV show, because he was a hedge fund manager, talking, really bragging about how you manipulate the stock market. They pulled it down when it was getting a lot of play, but I was able to find it not too long ago when we did a segment on Jim Cramer. And basically, he just lays out what hedge fund managers do. He said, well, you know how you can make your quarter? It's a nice game you play. You call up the financial reporters that you know, and you tell them, yeah, you know, the manufacturing on iPhones is down in China. That's what I'm hearing from my sources, and you're short Apple. And then you're making your money on the way down. And then if you know Apple's going to report a good quarter, then you take the other side of the trade.
Right.
That's a good way to make a little money. That's who these people are. That's who he is. Now that he has a TV show, he won't tell you he won't say things like that on camera. But the scumbag that he is comes out. You can't help it. If you're on camera talking like that day after day after day, you can't hide it if that's how your mind works.
No, because they know what's good for them. That doesn't change, right? You know, I mean, they ultimately know what's good for them and the people who watch them. And, you know, the way they stay in business, the way they remain popular is by advising according to those principles, right? Whether you're on TV or not, you know, it's the same game.
Well, his shtick is, I'm giving you the inside scoop because I want to help you, the average investor. But then when he's sitting and just talking freely with other fucking reptiles like himself on camera, he says what he really thinks, right? He tries to present himself as an everyman kind of a financial advisor. And really, he's a hedge fund manager. He's a scumbag. Right. He's a Wolf of Wall Street guy who never ran afoul of the law. Although really what he's describing there, that kind of stock market manipulation, that is technically against the law.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing. That's probably why that video is nowhere to be found.
They pulled it down once everyone started showing, look at this scumbag. This is exactly why we're doing what we're doing.
Right. Ruthless Criticism, thanks for the $5. We appreciate that. AOC was always a Democrat. Want to know how someone is a Democrat at heart? When they run in the Democratic Party. Yes, indeed. Indeed. That's why, you know, in retrospect, it never really made any sense to invest all that much hope in her. China Shell, thanks for the $5. The people and the people alone are the motive force in the making of world history, says Chairman Mao. Well, you would know, my friend. Be united, alert,
if
and
you
lively.
Go carrying pictures of Chairman Mao.
And we will win. Thank you, China Shell. Appreciate that. Oops, I'm sorry. Tusker, thanks for the $10. Glad I was able to catch the AOC segment. 14-hour shift sunk. Oh, yeah, no, they do, I bet. Looking forward to being with you guys in the chat in about 30 minutes. Yeah, I see you in the chat right now, Tusker, so thank you very much for being here. We appreciate that. Ruthless Criticism, again, really making it rain tonight. Thank you, sir. Don't have a vested interest in whether AOC is good or bad. It just so happens that I hope to be her someday. Yeah. Definitely a Washington-brained man there, for sure. And that's. I know people sometimes take issue with that criticism when it comes to politicians, and I understand that. But when it comes to him, I mean, he's basically a Washington beat reporter. He sees politics in that way. Ruthless criticism again. Thanks for $2. I'm gonna keep you till 3 a.m. just reading my super chats. Yeah, it's getting late. 10:30. Well, we had a lot of talking this evening. A lot of talking with you guys. Kind of more of an informal thing tonight, as it turns out. But thank you guys for your generosity. Yes, we appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. And thank you guys for those who signed up at Patreon this evening, who responded to our call, and for those who signed up at Substack. Hugely important and helpful. So thank you guys all very much. Danny RG, thanks for the $9.99. AOC was never in a position where she needed things to fundamentally change. She cosplayed working class to dupe voters and rode the identity politics train to the big bucks. Yeah, indeed. And that's reflective in her media appearances now. Now she doesn't get hostile interviews on MSNBC anymore. She gets the kid glove treatment.
Now they're very nice to her. Jen Psaki's all hanging out. They're like, they're going to go get Manny Petties together.
Indeed. Again, ruthless criticism. Wow, what a job. Let's say I got a 50% pay raise. All right, but this is mostly
guy
you.
Join the mob.
Join the mob. I was going to give $100 last week when the stream interrupted, but couldn't. Oh, is that right? Well, thank you. But now you get it all at once. Yeah, we had a little bit of a technical hiccup with our patron exclusive Rumble stream last time. But so far, Rumble seems to be working pretty well tonight. So we're glad to see that. Noah, thanks for the $5. Peter CIA Han has predicted the collapse of China 2 times at 2 different points of time and got it wrong. He's on his 3rd try now. Peter Lihan. I've never heard of that guy. Have you?
Peter Zihan. Yeah. Who's the other guy who kind of traffics in this like cycles of history? Roy Diallo. Roy Diallo does a lot of stuff like that. Yeah, he's another guy who kind of is one of these billionaires who wants to lay out the cycles of history kind of stuff. I don't know what Zihan's background is, but that's Diallo's background.
Okay. China Shill. Who needs HRT when you have microplastics? Good one, China Shill.
That's a good one.
You. And Rodrigo Mendez, you guys called bioweapons crackpot stuff. Bad takes. No, we didn't call that crackpot stuff.
We didn't.
Listen, if you want to look at that whole conversation that we had with Pasta.
Look, we're Ashkenazi Jews and we're healthy as horses. We know he was completely on track with that.
Yeah, exactly.
We know better than anybody.
Exactly.
We could eat COVID and shit polio.
Yeah, exactly. You can go and look at that conversation that we had with Pasta on Rumble. We talked about the book and everything. And so you can go and look at that. It was 3 hours. It was a long talk. And we'll probably do a part 2 pretty soon over on the Combo Couch. So you can see what we got to say about that. But we are going to talk about RFK right about now, are we not? So yesterday, in an attempt to establish that he's not, in fact, an anti-Semite, RFK Jr. appeared with Rabbi Shmuley. Yeah, exactly. He appeared with Rabbi Shmuley in New York City. Shmuley tweeted out the following with a quote from RFK from inside the hall. Quote, "If a Palestinian wants to criticize his government, he better do it in Israel." Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the quote that he was very proud to attribute to his friend from that evening. Aaron Mate makes the exact point I was thinking of here. RFK Jr. is cavorting with bigots to support an apartheid government, even putting aside basic human decency. Politically, it makes no sense. The Israel lobby will never back him. They have both parties already, and being pro-apartheid is a loser with the Dem base, especially youth. Dem base, I would, it depends on what you're talking about by Dem base. I mean, the shit libs don't really care, right? But it's certainly a loser with his base, right? It's certainly a loser with the sort of rebellious anti-establishment base of support that he has garnered. This is why it politically makes absolutely zero sense. You talk about overcorrecting. Like, yeah, he was smeared as an anti-Semite. I don't believe he's an anti-Semite. He's the opposite of that in many ways. But talk about just the unforced error of having to go here and give this talk with this guy in order to grovel to a base of support that is not going to back you. Like the ultra diehard Zionist Democrats, those are establishment Democrats. They want you out of the way. I don't understand what he thinks he's doing, what he thinks he's gaining by doing an event here. And when we look at what happened outside the event, we'll get to an episode that happened inside. But outside the event, we saw Jews protesting him being there. The state of Israel is not the answer to anti-Semitism. Support to Israel is not supporting Jews or Judaism. Here's an interview with one of these protesters right here.
Media accused this politician of being anti-Semitic, and now he's trying to prove that he's not anti-Semitic by saying how great Israel is. Does that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me because, like I said, this is the general perception that's given very successfully done by the Zionists as a ploy to gaining support and to stifle any opposition to the state of Israel is by equating and convoluting and the two concepts of Judaism and Zionism. Even though it's really both contradictory and it's just so blatantly wrong. Judaism is to serve God, to be peaceful, to be loving, to do kindness. Zionism is a truly selfish political movement of occupying another people. So wrong, so vicious, so anti what Judaism is all about. And it's totally humiliating to us as practicing Jews to see and hear what is being done in our name.
Supporting Israel is not support for Jews! Supporting Israel is not support for Jews! Supporting Israel is not support for Jews!
AIPAC, for instance, and the other Zionist organizations makes it a point of attempting to have every single faction in the United States or around the world, any political group, whether it's Democrats or Republicans or independents, it really doesn't matter. They want to actually equate and convolute the issue of Judaism and the Jewish people and the state of Israel, and try to create a mirage, a concept that if you're opposing the state of Israel, you're anti-Semitic. And in truth, Israel and Zionism, what they're doing is the greatest exacerbator of anti-Semitism around the world.
So there you have it. I thought it was important to just play that all the way through because that's a perspective.
Based.
Yeah, based.
That's what the kids are calling based these days. That is a based-ass rabbi.
That was a based-ass rabbi, that's for sure. And that's a perspective we very rarely get to hear. And so I just wanted to play that all the way through because, you know, as a couple of JOOs ourselves, Russell and I, we like to see that. You know, it's important. It's a very, very important message to hear, and it's something that we don't get to hear very often. And so, you know, good on them for being there. Big Mad Crab from the Indie News Network was out there. Jose Vega was in the audience. I think Crab was in the audience as well. So was Blue Moon Red Wine. I hope I'm saying that. She has a YouTube channel. She was there. So you had a lot of people there, not necessarily there as voices of encouragement, but people who were quite disappointed to see RFK there. I think for a lot of people who see some value in his candidacy, you know, this just it's an unforced error. It makes absolutely no sense. And let's play some developments from inside the hall here. Go ahead. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I wanted to get into the Hasids a little bit.
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course.
To just explain what you're saying. All right. So for the uninitiated, even most Jews don't really know the details of this. All right. So quickly, this is what the Hasidics are. They're a sect of Jews centered on the Messiah or the Messiah and the Messiah's return, because for Jews, of course, the Messiah has not come. So there are two different main sects of the Hasids. You got the Chabad Lubavitchers, who, if you live in New York, if you have a slightly large nose, they're going to run up to you and ask you if you're Jewish and try to get you to pray with them. I get that all the time. And I tell them, I will burst into flames if you put that stuff on me, which they never take in their humorous spirit, I must say. They don't have a sense of humor like most religious fanatics do not. But the Chabad Lubavitchers, they're more missionary because their view is that the Messiah will come if Jews are more religious, right? So every religious gesture a Jew makes is like putting money in the Messiah bank. And once you get a certain balance, the Messiah is going to come. So this is why they do kind of something that's very unusual for Jews. It's missionary work, but it's not missionary work to non-Jews. That's why they ask you if you're Jewish. They believe that if enough Jews are more religious, the Messiah will come. Then you have the Satmars, which I suspect at least some of the people in that crowd are. The Satmars are against the founding of the state of Israel because the Messiah has not come. And because the Messiah has not come, Israel's not supposed to be there, right? The Messiah is supposed to lead the Jews back to Israel. So there have actually been Satmar leaders who have gone to Iran and like bonded with the Ayatollahs on the whole Israel should not be there thing to like make common cause against Israel. So that guy did not read to me as coming out of that philosophy. I strongly suspect that some of the people there were Satmars, and their exception to Israel was that religious exception, as you might expect. So basically, it's like the Sharks and the Jets, only Hasidic Jews. You got the ones in Crown Heights are the Chabad Lubavitchers. The Satmars live in Williamsburg usually, and the Lubavitchers are very friendly to everybody, really. The Satmars are like Amish, like they don't want to deal with you. They are not inviting. To them, if you're not practicing the way they are, you're not Jewish. So just to give you an idea of the whole background on the people you're seeing here.
Yeah, but that guy just seemed like a conscientious.
No, I don't think that.
No,
I don't think that guy was a Satmar. I'm saying when you look at that crowd scene, I'd be surprised if some of those were not coming out of that sect. But then the Chabad Lubavitchers, they do tend to be humanist in a lot of respects. So you definitely could have had some of those there as well.
All right, so let's go to the inside of the hall here. And this is courtesy of the Indie News Network. Good on them for getting this video. Intense Gaijin Girl 2004 and Shmuley get into a heated exchange over the assassination of U.S. Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh and urges RFK to have a conversation with Jewish Voice for Peace. So let's take a look at this exchange right here, shall we?
Hi, first of all, I would like to thank you for your position on mandates. As a Jewish woman who cares for justice, I do have a question. It's been about a year since U.S. citizen and journalist Shireen Abu Akleh was shot by the IDF. It is known through both video and forensic science that it was definitely the IDF and that they targeted her. Are you willing to commit to calling for Israel to extradite the soldier to the U.S. with body cams for a public U.S. trial? She is a U.S. citizen and justice should be served. Also, let me finish.
You're not going to get two questions at once and pass this guy. He seems like the kind of guy to give you one at a time. Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go.
At a time. Sir, please let me finish. Also, please, if you make it quick, can you also commit to having a conversation one-on-one with Jewish Voice for Peace?
Okay. Why the boos? Like, what kind of an asshole do you have to be to boo that? Like, who could be booing at that? Right?
Well,
I mean, like I said,
the kind of people who would show up to this.
Who would show up to this event? Exactly.
Let's be civil about this. What's your name, please?
My name is.
Okay, first of all, she was very civil about this. The people who were not being civil were the people who booed her when she asked a perfectly legitimate and reasonable question. Right? Well, let's be civil about this.
Thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Israel is
I mean, to be fair, I don't see anything nefarious in asking for a name. That's just a common speaking tactic.
Yeah, I don't know if there was anything there.
I'll proceed with the free press.
I didn't ask you, by the way. I asked that. No.
Let Bobby will answer in a second.
I
am going to correct.
Look at him sitting there. I mean, this is what I mean. This is just it's so debasing. It's so embarrassing that you're there at this event where now this guy's going to fight with her over the assassination of a Palestinian American journalist. She asked it to Bobby Kennedy. She didn't ask it to him. He's not running for anything. But how defensive to get up there and to pick this fight. And here it goes on. We're not even halfway through.
Correct misinformation. The IDF has now admitted that this renowned Palestinian journalist probably did die from an Israeli bullet during a shootout against terrorists. She was there covering it. When you said that she was deliberately targeted is an absolute lie.
She was definitely targeted.
You tell me another country that's going to admit to their war crimes.
Yeah, right, exactly.
There is no way.
She covered dozens
There
of
is no
military.
way.
Wait.
He took a direct shot.
No. She covered dozens of
He should let me
military.
talk.
She covered dozens of military raids. Why did they wait to?
It took a direct shot.
Say what?
It took a direct shot to get her between the helmet and the armor.
What is your source for this?
What my source? My source is forensics and the video.
I have no source.
And the video.
So Israel conducted a lengthy investigation about this, which is what they do always.
It's amazing. First of all, whether she was deliberately targeted or not, she was gunned down. She's a journalist who was gunned down. She's a U.S. citizen. Shouldn't we feel that some accountability is in order for this, right? Yeah. And then I like how he turns to Bobby. He turns to RFK and he starts telling him as if he's coaching him how to answer her. She's right there. She's right there. And he's giving him the lines right in front of the audience. And he's just sitting there thinking, what the hell am I going to say here? He does eventually say something. We'll get to that in a second.
Amazingly, they admitted it probably was an Israeli bullet. And unfortunately,
Mr. Kennedy,
journalists who died.
It was not probably an Israeli bullet. It was an Israeli bullet. That's widely known. That's been reported in every outlet under the sun.
Mr. Kennedy, don't you think that, Mr. Kennedy, do you not think that this, I am Jewish, do not tell me that. Mr. Kennedy,
She's Jewish herself.
Please don't you believe that the U.S. should be able to adjudicate this? She was a U.S. citizen. She was also a journalist. And again, do you also commit to sitting down with the Jewish Voice for Peace and having a conversation with them, or do those Jewish voices not count? Yes, they do. Thank you.
Okay, enough. Let him respond, then we're going to move on. Go ahead.
I don't know enough about the case to make a judgment about, extradition, and I don't know if we even have an extradition treaty for that particular
That's
crime.
not what she asked you.
No, that's not what she asked him. This is what I mean. This is more
getting
lawyer
into
talk.
Process and yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then he says something even here,
or what the basis of it would be in Israel or Palestine or wherever the killing took place. I just couldn't answer your question.
The killing took place in Jenin, in the West Bank, which is where the raid was just a few weeks ago, where you said outrageously that the IDF acted valiantly, then that Israel was noble for sending IDF forces in to, quote, risk their lives in a security operation. I find it hard to believe he doesn't know where that happened. That was a huge story.
I was just going to say, first of all, if you're going to talk about this fucking subject as much as he does, and you don't know about this, maybe you should shut the fuck up. But of course he does know about it. He just doesn't want to address it, so he retreats to a very legalistic question of jurisdiction that really has nothing to do with the question she asked. This is why I keep trying to say, and you can, a couple people can go nuts in the chat. This guy is full of fucking shit. Okay, listen. If there's one thing New Yorkers know, it's bullshit. Okay, we're known for having a good nose for bullshit artists. This guy is a fucking bullshit artist. This is why some people wonder why he pisses me off that much. I don't like bullshit artists. This is a fucking bullshit artist. It's not even like he's giving a bad answer or no. This guy is fucking full of shit.
Yeah, he knows he's got Shmuley there next to him. He can't say anything that's gonna piss him off because that blows up the whole event, right? And so he has to act like he doesn't know where it happened or how it happened. And then he, diverts to, well, I don't know if we have an extradition treaty.
I don't know.
Maybe
we'd have to go to Switzerland.
Yeah,
and,
right. Yeah, exactly.
I think the Swiss. Shut the fuck up, man. I've had enough of this guy.
Since Israel is our last, they should be ours. Do you agree? All right. Thank you. You're on record.
Great event. Really, really. What a fantastic thing. Again, why? I mean, what is in it for him politically? Even setting aside just how obviously full of garbage he was there. I agree with you. I mean, he doesn't know where it happened. Come on.
Yes.
That was a huge story when it happened. It was a huge story.
And there's the other thing, and this is what when we were pre-gaming this and talking about this story. And I've said this about him before. When you look at this Israel stuff, yeah, it's not about a political upside. It's that RFK is not anti-establishment. He's an older version of the establishment. His politics are frozen somewhere around the early 70s, around the time his father was politically active. Those guys were establishment. Hey, I hate to fucking tell you this, but the person who ordered Hoover to wiretap MLK was RFK. All right. The whole Kennedy myth. Yeah, they did some good things. They also did a lot of bad things. There's a lot. The story of that family is tragic and it's complicated, and it's a lot less simple than these Camelot myths would have you believe. RFK, if you listen to how he talks, and the gray hairs, the Gen Xers and above will know what I'm talking about from memory. And the rest of you, watch some videos and documentaries of politics and politicians of that period, if you're not already very familiar with it. When you see him talking about capitalism as the solution to pollution, right? When you see him talking about how, it's just that the system needs to be enforced and it's not really a problem with capitalist incentives. When you see him talking this way about Israel, which would have been the absolute, not only conventional wisdom, but it would have been almost political suicide to have any position other than this circa 1980 or so. It's because these are establishment politics of his era. That is what you're seeing. You're seeing a very conventional Democrat circa 1972, and he's just never moved beyond that. That's why there's something about him that's evocative of an earlier era. But if we all are nostalgic for that, but I would argue, if anything, if you look at things like this, it shows you how much that nostalgia for those earlier eras is a little naive. Was it better than what we have now? Sure, absolutely. Even with everything that I'm saying about him, if you actually did give me a choice between him and Biden, I would vote for RFK, sure. You're not going to have that choice, but if I had that choice, sure. But that doesn't make him really anti-establishment in the way that people are making him out to be.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I would even say people have said this before. You've heard people say this on TV, on Fox News. They've said he should run as a Republican. You'd have better luck in the Republican Party. And if you really wanted to shake things up, that's what you would do. I mean, we're going to talk. We're having, once again, folks, if in case you missed the top of the show, Russell's going to be off this Friday. I'm going to be co-hosting with our pal Jose Vega, who was at this event. So we'll actually talk a little bit more about this event with Jose because he was there. But we'll probably play some of his Hannity appearance on Friday morning, because he went into this whole thing on Hannity where he talked about how the average American doesn't have $1,000 in an emergency. If it comes up, they can't get their hands on $1,000, right? He starts talking a little bit about class politics and things like that. And he does this kind of jujitsu that, you know, a guy like Bernie could never do, because Bernie was branded himself a democratic socialist, right? And so, like, when RFK says, well, you know, we don't have free market capitalism, what we have is cushy socialism for the rich, and then we have this brutal, merciless capitalism for the poor, he got a big applause there, because he told the Fox audience basically what Bernie was telling them about income and wealth sort of disparities and things like that. But when you're a Kennedy and you take their side on certain issues that they care very much about, and you're anti-war, and you are able to just phrase it in terms of, well, I'm for capitalism, but the rich get socialism and the poor get capitalism, like, people applaud for that. Like, if you really want, like, what I see there is an opportunity to really introduce an actual economic populism, an actual, like, no bullshit, not the Trump version of that, but an actual economic populism to the Republican base, where it would go over like gangbusters. Like, it would actually go over very well.
Well, they applauded Bernie too.
Of winning the Republican primary against Trump, he'd be polling above Ron DeSantis now. He'd be polling above Vivek now.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think he would. I think he would, because
Maybe.
I think people really dig him. And you know, then you'd be doing something. Imagine if you could get a sort of breakthrough of economic populism within the Republican Party. Just think of what that would do to the entire sort of political scene. It would shake things up in such a way that he's not willing to do. This is what I've told you a million times about this guy. He's a Democrat. At the end of the day, the man is a Democrat. Right?
Why
and
would
you
a
just
guy
see so many missed opportunities on top of bad judgments, on top of sleazy, opportunistic, dishonest statements, positions, appearances? It's just it's a mess. It's a disaster. This guy's a disaster.
It's a disaster. It's people
No one's
have
ever
never
seen
seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially just from a political perspective, with his views on the virus of unknown origins. Like, that's a non-starter in the Democratic Party.
It's always Ukraine.
If you want an audience for that, yeah, so is Ukraine. You have to go to the Republican Party. So, like, what are you doing? The whole premise of the campaign makes no sense. On the face of it, it makes no sense.
Yeah, indeed. I agree. I see Tusker's trying to send a super chat here, but yeah, I see this. I got you, Tusker. Don't worry, I saw it. Israeli bullets are safe and effective. Yeah, exactly. Is the super chat glitching out on some of you folks? I know it seems to be working for some, not working for others, but I know it's working for some because we're getting some in here. But we thank you guys very much for being here tonight. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Like I said, folks, we came under the censorship eyes of YouTube this past week, but we have had so far 8 patron signups over the course of this show. So that is really fantastic.
Thank you very
of you
much.
guys. We thank you guys very much for that. That's super helpful. That is a way to ensure that this project can survive whatever the tech gods have in store for us. So we certainly do. Thank you very much. Ruthless Criticism, I see you in the chat there. We will admit you in just a moment. I just have to get through a few more of these. Danny RG, thank you very much for the $9.99. I'll most likely vote for Cornell, but if he doesn't get better people helping him with his messaging, if he doesn't get better people, helping him with his messaging, and he keeps up the Donald J. Trump as a neo-fascist, Putin is a thug nonsense, the Greens won't get the 5%. I mean, look, I agree with you that he should not message in that way. I think the neo-fascist line, when he juxtaposes that with the calling Joe Biden a milquetoast neoliberal, he's sort of making the lesser evil argument for Biden, because the average person thinks, well, what's less dangerous, a neo-fascist or a milquetoast neoliberal, right? You're almost conceding that Biden is the lesser evil, which you definitely don't want to do. Yes. If they, I don't know if it'll cost them the 5%. That really depends on where he's going to be going for these votes. But I think if you're really gunning for the 5%, seriously, you have to go anywhere and everywhere. And so generally, I would say yes, you're right. He should not message in that way. I would have to rule in your favor on that, sir. Axel, the scumminess of the markets and investor mentality is infuriating indeed. Thank you for the member chat.
Well, yeah. I mean, that initial pop on the stock and then the drop, that's really typical market behavior. Like, they will tend to have a knee-jerk reaction to the resolution of a conflict, but then it'll take them a minute to absorb what it means for them. And in a case like that, yeah, you get the pop and drop like right away.
Yeah, indeed. Hella. Thank you for the $4.99. Appreciate that. I appreciate you not delving into the Graham Elwood crap. Elwood is caught in a downward spiral of negative thinking. Best not to join him. Yeah, a few people tweeted at us being like, oh, I can't wait for you guys to cover this. And I didn't want to tweet back because I didn't want to give it oxygen. But I was going to say, no, we're not going to. Like, we only cover that stuff when there's something to say about it that, like, actually adds to the discourse in some way. Right. Not just, like, emotional porn of, laughing at someone's nervous breakdown. Yeah,
watching a man fall apart on YouTube.
Exactly. Kramer was a Spartacist, a Spartacist in college, says PMC. Interesting. Chant of the Moldaya. Thanks for the $5.20. I've been trying to warn people about Kyle for years. Indeed. Well, you were ahead of the curve, my friend. I like this channel. I also Patreon. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Are you one of the new ones?
And thank you for the support. Yeah, are you one of the new ones tonight? We had 8 new patrons tonight. We thank you all very much for doing that. Ruthless criticism. Quoting Kinky in the chat. Is that Russell and Drag? Oh, you're talking about the Dick Rabbi? Yeah.
my Menachem Davila.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone who's on my Twitter, I have a treat coming for you on Sunday.
Indeed, yes. Go follow Russell on Twitter. Dwayne Vogel asked, why are people so surprised to see that not all Jews are Zionists? I'm Jewish. Yes, as are we. Well, it's that point
because the media doesn't show people who aren't Zionists.
Right. Exactly. DC, thanks for the $5. RFK is an anti-Semite in that he doesn't seem to care about Palestinians who are also Semites. Well, yes, in that technical sense, that's true. In that regard, many Zionists are, in fact, anti-Semitic. Well, that's what the rabbi was saying. He says what it has become is this sort of very selfish political ideology, that runs counter to, in his view, a lot of the tenets of his faith. Quintessential, thank you for the $25, whatever those are. Fun idea. Hong Kong? Yeah, maybe Hong Kong. Have Finkelstein on and show him the Anna Burgess leftist mafia drama. Yeah, that would be a fun show. Do that with him. We'd have to put that one on Rumble for sure.
That would be as surreal as a Mexican soap opera.
Yeah, that would be wild. Also, ever seen American Dad episode where Steve becomes communist? It's funny. I only watched it. Okay, so the first episode of American Dad. This is a fact. I don't know the entire fact, but the first episode ever of American Dad premiere after the Super Bowl one year? I don't ask me what year it was, but it was after the Super Bowl. And I remember watching it and liking it. I thought it was funny, but I never watched an episode after that. But I remember watching the first episode, and I laughed. Dwayne Vogel, thanks for the $5. If Meyer Kahane was alive, RFK Jr. would be running around.
You're right.
Nosing him.
For the uninitiated, the Chabad Lubavitchers believed he was the Messiah, and then he died.
Yeah. When did he die?
Gosh, it's like 10 years ago ish.
Oh, really? Was that recent?
Yeah, it's about 10 years ago. If you go, because I'm a tour guide and I was putting together a tour of Hasidic Brooklyn. This is why I know this much about this. One of the Lubavitchers, because he wanted the business, he wanted me to bring people there. He took me to the Rebbe's house. They have his house preserved. It's kind of like a museum and library, all this shit.
Black Freud, fourth string Kennedy. Womp wah. Yeah. Long story short, thanks to the $2, Russ, is RFK worse than Shabbos Ron?
Shabbos Ron.
Shabbos Ron.
You fucking half a goy. Shabbos Ron.
I'm reading here. I'm reading all these.
So RFK worse than no. I mean, in terms of who would be a worse president for the country, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, no, I would obviously I'd vote for RFK over. I mean, I'd vote for RFK. I
think a lot of y'all, when I talk about Ron DeSantis, you mistake horse race speculation for support or something. Like we did a whole video about him fucking his ensure torture methods on Guantanamo prisoners. We're not fans here.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. And yeah, no, look, I would vote for RFK. I think RFK is the best of all the major party candidates. Right? Of all the major party candidates.
Yeah. I mean, it's a leper with the most fingers.
Right, exactly. Black Freud. Actually, I'm glad he's running as a Dumbocrat. See, I just think at this point you need to really shake the system up. And so I do wish you were running as a third-party candidate, because I think he would pull equally from the Democrats and Republicans. He might even pull more from the Republicans and from the Democrats. So then if you have him pulling from the Republicans and Cornell pulling for the Democrats, now you have, what could even be an interesting four-way race if both parties are weakened that much. But, I think you need more voices. So, I mean, I wish he were running as a third party, but it's neither here nor there. He was never going to. I mean, it was just obvious that he was never going to. That's why I didn't support him from the jump. That's why I knew it was not. It was a waste from the jump. Long story short, any chance you guys going to the Jimmy Dore show in Levittown? No, I will not be going to Levittown. No, but I know he is playing Levittown. But no, I'm going to the one in New York City, Gramercy Theater. Going back to the city. I'll be back in the city this August 6th, by the way, a week from Sunday, because I'm going to film Jose's speech outside the UN. So I'm going to be making 2 trips into the Big Apple this month. But yeah, we will be there on the 25th at the Gramercy Theater. So that should be a lot of fun.
We will be there for that. Levittown was the first subdivision.
What's that?
It was the first subdivision, Levittown.
Wasn't Bill O'Reilly from Levittown?
Was he?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I always thought he was. Ruthless criticism. I overloaded the super chat system. No more left. Thanks for the $2, my friend. We appreciate that. All right, we got a few more super chats. Let's admit ruthless criticism into the studio here. You're on the air, sir. Your microphone is muted. Did you want to make a case for Vivek Ramaswamy?
Yeah.
No,
I got.
Well, you're too loud. Do you got a volume control on there?
Whoa, sorry.
Up to 11.
Yeah. How's this better?
Better. Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah. I was going to run in reverse order on the stories. First off, RFK, Russell's point, 100% old establishment. To my point about AOC earlier, the fact that he's running as a Democrat should show you his heart is in the Democratic Party. Like this is what he is till the end.
Sure.
He's not going to be, he's not going to be this great disruptor, right? To the extent that even if he were elected, that he gets in. To what extent is he going to make any significant change? I don't think it's realistic. That said, I do want to shout out Jewish Voice for Peace, because probably the best organization I've ever worked with. Just on the ground.
Cool.
So I was happy to see them get mentioned. But if anyone's looking for any organization, particularly around anti-war, anti-interventionism, I remember when Syria was popping off, the Syrian invasion, we had huge support from Jewish Voice for Peace out here on the West Coast where I am. So great organization. Total tip of the hat to them. Amazing, just super humble, everyone in it, just amazing in the work. On the union stuff, which I also want to talk about. I mean, unless you guys have comments, I don't want to say much. I want to try to
go ahead.
concise.
Go ahead. You
On
have
the union
29
stuff,
minutes and 13 seconds remaining.
yeah. And what's the cost? I don't think we got that.
Yeah, yeah, we'll work it out.
We'll work okay on the back end. On the union stuff, I mentioned on the last.
We'll send you an invoice. You know, they have those
Yeah.
Italian restaurants in Little Italy where they give you the bottle of wine and they don't tell you how much
Yeah.
it costs. They charge you based on how much you drink. They measure the wine after and then they bill you. That's how we'll do it with you.
Okay.
Bottle of red. Ooh, bottle of white. Somebody mentioned Billy Joel in the chat. So
Yeah.
give him a little break.
The union stuff, I mentioned on the supporter stream, which got interrupted a couple weeks ago, just talking about Taft-Hartley. And it's simultaneously disappointing and encouraging that UPS gets potentially, a contract that's in line. But I hear a lot of people out there who are sitting there going, "Oh, it's great they get support for their part-time workers," which is what a lot of people were pushing for. I mean, it would really be interesting to me, like a lot of these people who think that these union movements can be larger movements in the working class. Like, there's a reason that they stop there. There's a reason they stop at the scale of their employer, and we gotta get beyond this point where unions cannot organize across employer lines, where unions cannot organize solidarity in political unions on political points and things like that. So I'm going to keep pushing that. Repeal Taft-Hartley should be number one on any workers' organization list. And that's why, as much as I respect like the UPS workers doing what they need to do for them and doing it for their particular working class interests, there's no way that they can ever represent or fight for working class interests in general.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you're right. It's very, very difficult. I mean, that is a very, very heavy lift to make that conversion, if you want to call it that, right? Because for these workers to even do what they did now takes a lot. It takes a whole lot. I mean, I worked in a UPS warehouse. I know what it was like there. It is very, very difficult to get any kind of momentum going in these kinds of spaces, especially because the unions themselves, even the rank and file, are just not what they were back in the 30s, as Jim Cramer said, right? There was the sense there that anyone who stepped out of line did so because they could afford to do so, right? They were seen as the privileged one. Well, you can't have much at stake if you're willing to make any noise here. Right. That must mean it's because, you have other options. Right. Or you don't need this as much as we do. Right. A lot of times what you think of as being motivating as a motivating factor to organize can very often be the opposite, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining it right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I would say that the stakes are just, they're created artificially, right? Because the stakes for them to step outside those boundaries,
right,
are imposed by the state itself because they don't have a right to organize.
Of course, yes,
their employee contracts, right? So,
right,
it's the state is creating those stakes every step of the way, and saying that as soon as you guys want to organize for something even bigger than this. If you guys say, "Hey, you know what?" Someone asked me in the chat. They were asking, "Can the Teamsters or can UPS workers overthrow the union leadership?" Like, well, no. Like in principle, like Teamsters is larger than the UPS.
Sure.
Right. Teamsters as a union is larger than the UPS. But even then, like the Teamsters is still going to be regulated along all of these state lines. It is a state recognized union. They have their legal protections under National Labor Relations Act and exclusively then Taft-Hartley, which limits their ability and capacity. But that's where we need to attack. We need to attack it at the systemic level of how these organizations are perceived as valid or justifiably fired. Right, is the question. Sure. Right, because that's the question: when can they get fired legally? When can the company retaliate? And that's what we need to protect against. Is under no grounds should those companies be able to retaliate. And obviously Biden is just this idea that he's a pro-union president. I mean, if this thing kicked off, it would not shock me in the least if they crush this in the same way that they did with respect to the railroads. So So I think, you know, it's a bittersweet thing, because, you know, it's great to see them win a contract victory. That should be inspiration alone for everyone else.
Yes.
But, you know, I'd love to see a larger simultaneous sort of working class strike movement going on that could form those connections and form those bonds to say. And, you know, we're seeing that with, like, I know Yellow came up recently as well, which I think also might be organized by the Teamsters. I could be wrong on that, but the company Yellow, do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was just another contract dispute. Yeah, so just the potential for strike capacity that we're going into was really big, and in some sense that was interesting and hopeful in its own right. But so it's bittersweet for me. On the AOC Democrat thing, like, I think I said enough on that. I mean, we just all knew that's where it was.
Yeah, that was a pretty easy one. That was a lob ball. I just want to read this because this segues into your Vivek stuff. Bippin, who's also a patron supporter, who's in the studio now, just sent this as a private chat. He says he just wants to make a point. If either RFK, Cornell, or Vivek make it into the White House by some miracle, the bureaucracy and white-headed politicians will make pretzels out of them. So what's your case for Vivek Ramaswamy?
Well, yeah, I don't know that I agree with. I don't even know that I agree with that statement. Whether they make pretzels out of them or not. My case for Vivek Ramaswamy is that, to me, like, I don't know if you've been paying attention to what he's talking about or what he's saying. This guy seems like people were talking about DeSantis being the worst case, like the more actualized and realized sort of like self-conscious fascist over Donald Trump. I actually think like Ramaswamy is much more that. If I were to say that there's a conscious fascist movement in this country, I would say like a politician like Ramaswamy is embodying that. Like Trump was sort of accidentally so. The Democrats with Biden are sort of structurally so. Like they have to progress down this line, right? They don't really have a choice. But that's where I want to bring it back to just like the sort of class politics of it, is that the way that I'm looking at it is, well, so whether or not who's going to be in the election, my view is that the idea of a sort of traditional Democratic Republican primary and election is done. The ruling class does not have a unified force moving forward. There's not significant enough agreement among them. And what's happening, I think, both in working class movements, which we're seeing on, you know, with a lot of these strike uptakes and, you know, this quote unquote quiet quitting movement and things like this, as well as certain politicians like Vivek Ramaswamy, is we're seeing what I talked about last week as well. The Marxist theory was not necessarily tied to a material crisis. This is a failure of the ruling class to rule. It is a division that's happening. It is a purely political manifestation of their inability, incapacity to manage the decline of empire, right? And and everyone is chopping at the bit to say, how can we get in there and put ourselves in position of power? And that is exactly where someone like that comes from. So I would say like someone like Ramaswamy comes from a lower section of the bourgeois class, perhaps even upper petty bourgeois. This is traditionally what you see in fascist movements. And if you look at his ideation of how people interface with the state, with civil society versus state, is very interesting, particularly on the question of voting rights. I don't know if you follow that. His idea of doing civil service for voting rights, and obviously civil service includes military service and all these things. This is a very sort of what I would call a traditionalist view, right? And that traditionalist view gets tied to a lot of real traditional capital. This idea of we have real resources, we have real power in terms of labor, in terms of land, in terms of mineral resources and things like this. And this is what we should be exercising and emphasizing over other powers in the the foreign policy sphere, right? This idea, and Trump has done this too to an extent, but only sort of in a clownish way, in a sort of like I'm just going to represent it. This idea of, we're going to beat, like, the way Trump interfaced with China and all these people was, oh, we can beat you. Like we can be the better deal makers. We can go into that negotiating room and walk out on top because we have the leverage. And it's the same way he interfaces with Russia and all this other stuff. This is the natural progression. DeSantis has nothing other than identity politics. And identity politics is just an expression of the collapse of bourgeois decadence and society at large. They're struggling and grasping at straws to come up with some reason why they have to continue to be in power. That's why I think, like, I go against Russell's prediction on this. DeSantis is done as a doorknob. He's just over. So the only question for me is, like, Ramaswamy. Every other one in the race that I can tell is essentially just an echo of the former class politics, the upper bourgeois caste system. That like they're the ones that are just projecting the normal status quo. That's not going to work. Ramaswamy is the only one that I see in there that's doing in even a more conscious way what Trump did, and he's smart enough to appeal to that potential disaster that Trump is walking into, that and not offend Trump, not only not offend him, but offer him something, right, to take on that power. So that's why I think Vivek is 100% winning, like, and I'm not even saying winning the Republican primary in a traditional sense. He is going to crush it and take it over in the event that Trump really goes foobar, which is kind of what I said, right?
Well, that's what it's all predicated upon at the end of the day. But thank you for making the case. Thank you for calling in, my friend. Appreciate it. We got some more super chats we got to get to, and I do have another couple of callers who might be chiming in. But thank you. Great to hear from you, and thank you for your support, and congratulations on your pay raise. Let me know when you get another one.
Mazel tov.
Let me know when you get another pay raise.
Does
anybody else want to chime in? Go ahead.
Before we get into a super chat, let me issue a correction. I mixed up two people. All right, so Meir Kahane was basically like a Jewish Nazi. He was the founder of the JDL in 1968. He was actually assassinated in 1990. The guy that the Lubavitchers, some, not all, believed was the Messiah was Menachem Schneerson. So, just a correction.
All right. Thank you for that. Did somebody call you out on that, or did you realize that?
Well, I saw somebody talking about how
you get served.
Well, no, I don't think. I mean, somebody might have. I don't watch the chat like a hawk, but somebody was mentioning Kahane's history, and I was like, "Oh, hang on, right? That was that guy. So
Right.
that can't be that guy." And then I looked it up.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. Dwayne, thanks for the $5. Even more pathetic, RFK Jr. sat there while Shmuley lied and said Sirhan killed his dad. Yes, because he hates all Palestinians. Well, there was somebody called him out on that too, which I might talk about with Jose on Friday, because there was a friend of Jose's who got up and started challenging him there. Thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate that. Throwback to the last show. RFK equals poop. Thank you for that. We had the poop trolls in here on the last show, so thank you very much. Counselor Guy calling in. Thank you, Counselor Guy. So these are some Patreon members who are calling in. You get call-in access to the show at the end of the show if you join as a patron. We've had a bunch of you guys sign up tonight. Counselor Guy, is this your first time talking to us?
Yes, it is, sir. Can both of you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you. Nice to meet you. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan. I've been kind of listening to you guys religiously, either while I'm doing case notes at work or working out. Yeah, so I'm a pretty big fan.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
So I've been following a lot of the RFK and Cornel West and Joe Biden possible election shenanigans going on. So is Marianne pretty much out at this point?
I mean, pretty
Yeah,
much.
I'd say
I mean,
so.
RFK's
She's
out too. They're both out.
I mean, she's more out because she's
more out
out
'cause
of
she's out of
money.
money.
She's out of staff. She's apparently not willing to throw in any more of her money, at least according to the reporting. And I mean, she's nowhere in the polls. Like, I mean, come on, what is she doing? She probably drops out. I don't know, man. It's funny these days because back in the day, you would have said, well, once you run out of money, you can't run. But it doesn't cost anything to keep going on podcasts. Like, is it possible that she has no staff and just keeps going on podcasts? Maybe. I mean, it wouldn't be much less serious than what she's doing now.
Right.
Well, now she wants to challenge Bobby Kennedy Jr. to debate.
Yeah, I know.
So,
I mean, she would love to get any attention from anyone.
Right.
I'm sure, other than the Vanguard and Crystal and Kyle.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so I have
and Politico, who just seem to take special delight in like pulling
her
the wings
misfortune,
off the butterfly of her campaign.
Right.
So I have a question that I'm wondering what both of your folks' responses are. I'm also curious what folks in the chat think. Is it, well, because I was talking to my friend about this the other day. He almost insinuates that it's unethical to not vote. Because I didn't vote in the last election, because I don't like Trump nor Biden. And if it's those two again, I don't see myself supporting either of them in good conscience. So do you two think it's unethical to not vote?
No, of course not. Of course not. I wouldn't tell you to no. I would never say it's unethical to not vote. How could it be unethical to not vote? I would say, I mean, I personally would this time because I think Cornel West has an opportunity to make people panic if you vote for him. I think that's a good idea, but I was certainly not I wouldn't compel you beyond that. And no, I would not say it's unethical not to vote. Of course not.
No, I mean, I'm not saying to throw away your vote, but I'm trying to get a Paul Atreides for president movement going here.
Right.
So he's running on the motto, "The spice will flow."
The spice will flow, indeed.
So is it even plausible that Dr. West is going to be on any primary ballot or anything?
Well, he's running on the green ticket, so they're going to have their primary, and then once he wins that primary, which I'm very, very confident he will, then he'll be on the general election ballot. It's a question of whether or not he can be charmed or bullied off of it by November, and somebody raised that question earlier, and I think that's a valid concern. But if I had to bet, I would say odds are, yeah, he's going to be on the ballot in November against Biden and whoever the GOP nominates. And so in that situation, yeah, I mean, I would advocate voting for him. I wouldn't insist on it. This isn't going to become the Cornell campaign show, but I would say, yes, that's who I would advocate you vote for if you're going to vote. All right, Counselor Guy, thank you so much for the call. We got some few other pieces of business to take care of, but it was great to meet you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening. Big fan of the show. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you for your support, my friend. Very, very much appreciated.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Who else we got hanging out back here? Oh, you. We know you.
Oh, that one.
That one. Yeah. Yeah. What's going on?
We caught her reading Das Kapital.
Yeah, right.
No, mine's Tom's actually. Just kidding. Now, how are you guys doing?
Doing all right. Hold on one second, Tusker. I'm sorry. John Dickinson says, don't forget Rumble rants. No, we haven't. I got one more here. Jake, I don't know if you're still hanging out in the back there, but I know Bonzo Beans says Shmuley is to RFK Jr. what microplastics are to the gonads. And then he also says, thank you for showing the Orthodox Jew interview outside the RFK event. That's nice to see. Well, thank you. Yes, we thought it was important to show that. And I don't know if John Dickinson, if you are Bonzo Beans over there, but don't worry, we'll always catch you. That's why we have Jake here tonight, putting in another evening of great work. So big round of applause to Jake doing producer duty this evening. Much appreciated for sure.
And if I
Remember, well, the spice must flow.
Yeah,
I did see the extended comments from that rabbi on the convo couch earlier today. So I don't know exactly where they got the video from, but if you want to see the extended comments, it's within, I think, the first 20 minutes of the convo couch episode.
Oh, okay. I watched some of the convo couch today, but I didn't catch the beginning. I thought Pasta made a very good point about censorship on the show, the part that I did watch.
Mm-hmm.
But so I did catch some of that. Kinky asks, should RFK convert? Yeah, perhaps. Perhaps.
Yeah. Like in 2 weeks, just to prove how much he's behind, like the Israeli state, he's gonna go settle there.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
No, he's a little old for the circumcision.
Right. Yeah.
At this point.
Did you have anything on your mind, Tusker, or were you just hanging out in the backstage area
No,
there?
I was just hanging out. I think it was a good show. I think I was really, really shocked because I definitely had not seen that footage of, that person. Is it Jewish Action for Peace? Just asking like legitimate questions and asking RFK to speak to every Jewish voice. I mean, that's kind of always one of these things that sort of happens in establishment media, or what always people like to say. They say, well, I know the Cubans in Florida and they think Cuba's bullshit. I mean, it's that type of stuff. And it's like, okay, so like 0.03% of the population that's left Cuba and concentrated in like Miami, and you think that they speak for all Cubans? Like,
well,
you can't.
He doesn't want to talk to other Jews because he's in 1972.
Right.
I'd say, and he has no intentions of leaving. He just wants to keep his politics in 1972. And at that time, like, there were no other Jewish voices. Like, if there were, nobody heard them. Right? Like, and legit, there would have been very few Jews back then with a contrarian view on Israel. Like, there were
plenty of them. It's just they never even got a chance to be, heard.
I mean, legit back then, the Holocaust, man. The Holocaust. Like, it was such. You got to remember, at that time, the Holocaust was only like 1975. It was 30 years ago, right? I mean, think about 30 years ago. So it was very fresh, and the entire culture, the entire Western world had just absorbed the idea that supporting Israel was penance for the Holocaust. That and if you were against Israel, you were supporting the forces that caused it. I mean, that was just a formulation that was generally not questioned. The 90s, the cracks started to show, and even those cracks were very small. It's only really in the last 10 years or so that consensus has truly started to shatter.
Right. And I think that a lot of that has to do with increases in, technology, social media, and all that other type of stuff that allow those voices to kind of be able to get a grip in society and perhaps change some people's minds, grow sort of a more dissonant voice. And that's kind of what I'm talking to there. I'm talking to those people have always existed. They've
they're not in as large numbers. Not in as large numbers. Back then, you would have had very few Jews with that view.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is because of our people's limited access to be able to reach people, those numbers might have been grown back then. It's only now with that's my argument there.
But I don't think you can overstate what a specter the Holocaust was.
Well,
Western civilization at that time.
Well, I mean, of course, you can't ever really overstate the Holocaust. It was.
No, I'm just saying, like, even if you had more communication, in that historical moment, I don't know how much traction you would have.
Yeah, steep hill to climb for sure. But yeah, so I mean, that was just that. It was just really shocking to me. How easy it is to just dismiss, voices like that in any type of audience. I mean, especially if you claim to be this person that wants to hear from all people, wants to be a uniter, wants to be, well, if you really care about the Jewish people, like he claims to, then why aren't you more interested in listening to all Jewish voices? If you're so interested in uniting people. And I think it's clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear. And I think, it's indicative of a lack of political talent, honestly. Like, that's what I see it as, above everything else. I mean, it's just a lack of judgment and a lack of skill. I mean, you're there. That's what Aaron Mate, that's why I thought that tweet was good. He's like, setting aside all the moral issues, right, for the sake of making this narrow point, whose votes are you getting there? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Right. Like, the most committed Zionists are the most committed Democrats. The most committed Democrats are voting for Biden. They're writing checks to Biden. They're not interested in you. So what is the point? It just makes no sense. Which, once again, look, the thing about RFK is what we said from the very, very start, which is the fact that he's choosing to run as a Democrat makes no sense. That shows a lack of political judgment, and a lot of decisions he's made since then have shown that exact same thing.
Yeah,
I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say we
so
called that.
You guys,
I say we called that. Yeah, I think so. PMC,
you guys,
gun to the head. Nikki Haley or societal collapse? It's
societal collapse.
I say that's a distinction without a difference, really. I don't think Nikki Haley. I think Nikki Haley, that pretty much fast pedals World Wars 3, 4, 5, everything.
I've been waiting my whole life to ride through the desert wastelands in a muscle car with a shot-off shotgun and a cool leather outfit. Exactly. Bring it on.
Exactly. All right, folks. Thank you very much for being here tonight. We appreciate that. We added a 9th patron over the course of this show, so thank you very much for everybody. Once again, that's what we're really trying to hammer home. If you want to keep this show afloat, no matter what the tech gods have in store for us, like I said, we did come under the gun of censorship this week. And so the way to help make sure that we can stay in touch with you guys and keep this show on the air, on one airwave or another, is to go to patreon.com/DueDissidence and sign up to become a supporter of the show. You get call-in access to these streams. You also get access to 2 patron exclusive live streams per month. The next one's coming up on Monday, the 31st at 8 p.m. And like I said, we've had a lot of very, very generous super chatters over the course of the evening. Don't spend any extra money with us if you don't have it to spend. If you super chat 3 times per show, super chat twice per show, and throw the rest in the Patreon, it really does make a huge difference. And so we thank you very much for your support. Thank you all for signing up, those who did. And we had a lot of people sign up to the Substack this evening as well. So that's hugely important and hugely appreciated. Thank you so much. And we hope we got it right for you tonight. We had a good mix of topics, I thought. It was a little somber at times, but as is the world. So thank you very much for being here, everybody. We appreciate you very much.
Like a comedy tragedy mask.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I'll be back Friday morning with Jose Vega, who's co-hosting with me Friday. And then Russell and I be back here Sunday night, 7 p.m. We will see you guys then. In the meantime, once again, thank you very much for this evening. Until we see you guys back here, be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.